What's the first thing women notice? Your face. That's why you got to take care of. Simple things like getting a haircut, grooming your face, and brushing your teeth is important. But there's one thing guys miss and that women always notice. It's when a guy isn't taking care of his skin. That's why I'm so excited to have T. Shanley as a sponsor of today's video. T. Shanley simplifies the process of taking care of your skin. They provide you with all the products you need and nothing you don't. Seriously, I don't think some of you believe me when I tell you how much implementing a quality skincare routine will improve your confidence in all aspects of your life. I recommend you start with the level 1 system, which comes with all the basics: daily face wash, exfoliating scrub, an AM moisturizer with an SPF 20 and a PM moisturizer. But and to make it dead simple for you guys, they provide an instruction card in every box that tells you when to use each product, how much to use, and in what order. But because T just sponsoring this video, they're offering you an amazing deal. Just click the first link in the description and get 40% off your first skincare system and free gift. Plus, as a member, you'll get 20% off for life. By the way, one of their new gift options is a silicone body scrubber, which is a $20 value and a complete game changer. Once you use this, you'll never go back to a regular loofah ever again. So don't wait any longer. Click the first link in the description to start your skincare journey today.
Go time. Go time, y'all. What's going on, family? How y'all doing? Let me go ahead and introduce the crew. We got Miss Ty from the Shine, Clout Jones, Aisha, Luis, Ari, Simone, Viz, Hank, me, myself, I'm Lapeef J. Welcome. What's going on, family? How y'all doing?
Good, and you?
Another day in the paradise.
Blessed and highly favored.
What's happening now? What's happening
now? It's good to see y'all, man. Happy Wednesday. This week is flying by. Tomorrow's Thursday, then we got Friday. Then the weekend started all back over again. What's going on, Dr. Steele? How you doing? Ice, as you guys come in. Christopher Matthews, hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you are catching this on a replay, make sure you do the same as well. Let's go ahead and get the housekeeping out the way. Shout out to the sponsor, T. Shanley Uncomplicated Skincare for Men. You guys get 40% off. 40% off along with a free gift. And if you become a member, you get 20% off for life. 20% off for life. That link is in the description. I'm happy to be here. We got a great discussion ahead for you guys. Are y'all ready to do this on this Wednesday? Are you motivated? Yeah? Okay. Make sure y'all take y'all a sip of water so your throat don't get dry. Especially all of my talkers, you know. You guys are long-winded. So I'm starting to think that's a skill. It has to be a skill, especially when you just are so focused that you don't even realize how long you've been talking and you're not even paying attention to who's tapering off on the panel. That is definitely a skill. So one of them days I hope to have that much focus as Miss Simone, Miss Biz, Luis, Clout, all my long-winded folk in here. Aisha just usually just straight to the point. She keep it simple. You know, Ty, when she don't agree with somebody, she'll come in. We're gonna see what Ari do. You know, Ari is she's gonna probably level set the panel today. You know, she's professional in reading folks and assessing if they have any issues internally. So she'll be unpacking those. So some folks might get exposed today and they might find out that they may have ADHD or some other form of, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but you get the point.
I should put a disclaimer that I am not
conducting a functional assessment on anybody here.
Okay.
I'm not here in my role as a clinician. I feel like that's probably a legal disclaimer there.
Damn, that. All that. Are you BS? No, you serious?
No, I'm serious.
No, I'm
We have
talking
to get a
about
whole.
No, I'm
Oh,
talking
okay.
about in the back chat.
I'm serious. I've been diagnosed. I'm still going through more tests, but yes.
Okay, that's a lot.
Unfortunately, I had someone who previously diagnosed me with bipolar, but they do that to a lot of brown and black women from what I heard from my therapist.
Okay. Let's see if we can get some healing hands. You know, Viz is real spiritual, so we're gonna see if we can get some healing hands on you as well. We're gonna see if we get the Lord's working here. And that's all you need. You know, you don't need them clinicians. All you just need is a good old spiritual whooping. So we're gonna do today and get you right back in order. Amen. All right, so let's go to get this show started, man. Men communicate differently. We're talking about harshness, and I'm pretty sure some of the folks on the panel have an idea when women feel like the men are coming too hard on them. Their harshness is just too aggressive. Hank, just too much. The tone is, you know, they couldn't hear the message because of the harshness and the tone and the delivery. So we're going to go ahead and play this little clip. I got some questions. Let's just see if we can try to unpack this. Let's not cut folks off, man. Let's let them finish, even if you disagree with them, even if they misquote you. Just try to be patient and just wait it out. You know, it's a lot that you can learn when you just listen. You can have a stronger argument or a stronger comeback once you hear it in its entirety. Then you might be able to fire back in a different way. So it's a lot of positivity when you just be patient. So I know we got some firecrackers, but let's go ahead and get this started, man. I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip. Who else we got in there? Sir Grace, though. Just Blaze was going on. Here we go. Oh, and we start off like this. Let me just come back in, man, because I always got to do this. All right, let's try this again. There we go, right here. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be complimenting versus competition is what I hear. And I think that relationships suffer is because it's typically a competition and both people are trying to diminish how much they're going to lose.
That's good.
How much ground am I going to lose if I lose this argument? How much authority am I going to lose if I don't say this thing? How much am I going to lose? And so when you're competing for the loss, then you cannot ascertain the gain.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about it from both ways. And I'll start with us men because the Bible says in Colossians 3:19, it says, husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Yeah. I think, and I've learned this, one of the things that causes a woman to lock the keys to her heart, and I know infidelity will do it.
Yes, sir.
I know that not feeling safe will do it.
Yes, sir.
I know that her not being able to trust you will do it.
Sir.
You know, you say one thing and do another thing. All of those things do. But I think that one of the biggest doors to a woman's heart that has the most complicated lock, of which only a single key can open, is she is very, very apt not to respond to harshness. That she can forgive you for doing a myriad of different things. But if you are consistently harsh to a woman, I think that locks a door that not even she knows how to always unravel and unlock.
Wow.
Have you ever had an instance where you were harsher than you needed to be? Yeah. And you wanted, and this is men because we want this, we can be harsh today and expect that moments after the harshness, she should be fine. We're moving on and we're going on. But that harshness sticks with her. and it lingers with her. Have you ever had an instance like that?
Yeah, Pastor. Many times, in my 27 years being married, for me, it wasn't always harshness in what I said, but it was what I did. And what I did most often was going to internally going to my breaker box and cutting off all the power.
Wait a minute. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what he just said? Now, I need everybody.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it. What's going on, Cloud, man? I thought we had to get the doctor on there, man. I had to diagnose you, man. You had that tongue hanging out your mouth and your head to the side. But anyway,
yeah, they was making me sick.
He said the tone is equally important as what is being said. How harshness in a relationship can cause you to shut down and become distant from your significant other. Let's go ahead and unpack this, man. Let's start with you, Miss Ty. What do you think about what the pastor said and that message?
I totally agree with the message. I don't think it's anything wrong with a man expressing how he feels about something, or even trying to, in certain ways, maybe correct certain behavior or get their woman to understand their perspective, but it's all about the delivery, right? And that applies to both parties, both men and women. But men innately can come off harsher sometimes when they're frustrated, when they're saying something out of anger, when they feel like maybe they've reached their limit. The message can come through, and even though everything they are saying may be true, we can't hear it. Because of the harshness, we instantly shut down. And then we hold on to it. Even when we say we've moved on, even when we might act okay later, the woman didn't let it go, right? And then it gets applied to everything else in the relationship. And slowly but surely, you may see your woman starting to change in how she deals with you. A lot of men will say later on, like, I don't know why she acts like this. You used to be so loving. You used to do this. You used to do that. But over time, she stopped because of the way you speak to her, because of how harsh you are. And that builds up a wall in a woman that usually would have her guard down, as long as you were able to compose yourself in the message that you were giving to that lady. So I think it's 100% true.
Okay. Go ahead, Viz.
Yeah, so I know that is I'm assuming the conversation is directed at men, but someone speaking harshly, be it man or woman, you're eventually gonna shut down. I'm interested in what the gentleman meant by him shutting down all of the power, or the circuit breaker or whatever. What he means by that, because I think that that's more dangerous for men to do that, because now you're losing your voice, because this other person, typically harshness comes out of frustration. So if there's two parties that's encountering frustration, then that means there's some communication gap going on. It could be to the extent of, regardless of what I say and how I say it, you're going to take this and perceive it to be harsh. I can say it as nicely as possible, but due to the fact that you already have this wall up, you're going to receive it as being harsh. So for that person to shut down, you're doing even more disservice to the relationship, to the communication. So I agree with what he's saying in general. However, if a person is perceiving this to be harsh, then I think both parties need to take a step back and see, where is this frustration coming from, because that's the only way that will happen.
All right, go ahead, Ari.
I think you both made really good points. I think it's important to remember that it can go either way. And I know that clip did seem to be kind of isolating the male harshness, right? I think the reason that that might have been brought up. For one, the speakers were male, but also like a woman's nervous system is a little bit more easily escalated or more easily dysregulated when it perceives being under attack. And to your point, even if we're not under attack, sometimes it can, based on your learning history, feel that way. And I think it's important to remember that all behavior and communication is a way to meet a need. And so when we can remember that and try to keep ourselves regulated while we're bringing a problem to the floor, we are going to be able to meet those needs more effectively. Like if the goal is actually to solve the problem, then we want to say it in such a way that our partner can receive it. Whereas if our goal is to lash out and release that frustration, right, then being harsh is the way to do it. It's just not going to serve the relationships. It's not going to solve the problem.
All right, go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, I like to share so far. It's never really what you say. It's really about how you say it in the tonality in which it's being delivered, right? I think there's a certain level of cadence and aggression that sometimes is uh, perceived a lot different. So, for example, on this panel and on many panels before, when Hank tends to talk, he comes very off. You know what I'm saying? Like gloves off. I had times, I'll put you in a mitten and handle you off gently because the reality is I don't know what happened to you 5 or 10 minutes before we got on this panel. You might have had a terrible day or a terrible week. You know what I'm saying? So you never know what's really happening behind the scenes with people. So, try to handle people with a little bit of care. But with that being said, I think what happens is that people don't know how to speak life into their partner, unfortunately. And these are things that some people tend to learn as we are developing and speaking to our friends. People never spoke life into them or try to understand them. They themselves at times don't know how to handle other people. They don't know how to speak to other people. They don't know how to speak life into them. They don't know how to speak reason into them because no one has taken that time or consideration to do the same thing for them. And sort of what happens is that same kind of way of communicating, that style of communicating tends to get transferred in their way of handling other people, especially their significant others at times. Just to kind of go to the end when the gentleman said, when men speak about shutting down or turning off their power, I mean, that is really pretty much a catalyst where that man feels that there's no longer any respect in the conversation. Respect is off the table, or they feel disrespected or have been emasculated. Um, in any way, shape, or form, right? I think it's also the weaponization of things. And also, too, there's certain things that we might tell people in private that we might feel comfortable that later on in the heat of an exchange of a conversation, they might use that and weaponize that against them in a form of hurt. So I think when we look at it from those different sides, I think that when that man was speaking about, men shutting down, is you kind of using something that they probably told you in confidence against them, or there's no longer any respect in the conversation or in the relationship. Are you?
All right, go ahead, Ish.
I agree with the overall panel. My mom always told me you catch more flies with honey than you do with shit. And I think that everybody is wired that way. Honestly, a lot of things that Hank say on the panel go right over my head because of his tone and his aggressiveness. And it's not that I don't want to hear it, it's just that I don't respond well to people that are aggressive. Like I sincerely don't I don't date aggressive men. I don't hang around mean people. Like I don't mix well. It doesn't work good for me. So if I'm in a relationship with someone and they're aggressive, I'm not going to date them. I don't like aggressive people.
Okay. If you don't know the person, then how would the person know if he may need to change? Like, for example, Hink is on the panel, so Hink doesn't really know how you feel about his tone. But I find it kind of weird that you would put more focus on how he sounds, even though he may not be directly talking to you, versus hearing what he has to say, because he may be saying something valuable. But I just don't like when if you want to have a conversation afterwards, then I'm okay with it. Like, I heard what you said earlier, but sometimes when you talk like this makes me feel this way. But when you miss the whole message, or you just decide to tune him out because of what you assume he's going to say based on what he said before, or because of the way his tone is, I don't think that's giving him a fair chance when it comes to this whole communication process.
I mean, I can agree with your take on that. But I think that I also think that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So I'm not one to be like, oh, he says this every day and this is his tone every day, but this is not him. Like that, I like him. But when he starts calling us heifers and they start going around, I can't. It gets toned out with me. And honestly, I'm the same way when I date someone. Like I done went on a date with somebody that literally got aggressive with me and I never talked to them again. Like I know my triggers and I know that I'm not, because I am a nice person. So this person is going to continue to do this to me, because I've dated men that are like that, thinking like, oh, I can soften them up with my love. You know what I mean? That does not work. That person is mean. They're going to be mean. And so I just have learned throughout life to love people for who they are and for not who you want them to be. So if that's who you are, that's who you are. And I can choose, like, if I want to ignore it for my sanity, so I don't have a reaction or so that I'm not upset, then that's just what I do. But I'm really not a fan of like aggressive and harsh talking people. The same way most men don't want to date a woman who always like cussing them out and going bananas. If you walk in the store and a lady is going off, you're probably not going to listen to anything she's saying. But if her tone is more calm, then you're going to hear her more. So that's just how I feel. Sorry, Hank.
Go ahead, Hank. Since we made you the topic of discussion, go ahead.
Hey man, that shit don't matter to me. Look, let me say this: women don't move me like that. They don't, with their thoughts or their feelings. Unless you got my last name, it doesn't matter. But let me say this about, I guess, what the guy was saying on the video. Most men are not aggressive like that with women. Until I think Ty said, unless you put him in a predicament, you piss him off, you upset him. Most of the time we come off passive because we realize we're dealing with somebody who probably more than likely can't handle a direct conversation. So you got to say shit like indirectly at first. Now, if I got to repeat myself, then yeah, you ain't gonna like me. And most of y'all might feel like Aisha feels. But I'm just a direct person. I don't believe in beating around the bush. And I'm gonna just tell you how I feel. I'm not gonna. And sometimes it may be my stature. I'm 6'3", 265. And so, with me being like that, I tell you this: my wife don't have no issues. Nobody's messing with her. Nobody's running up on us. That's not a problem for us. So I think y'all ladies need to stop dealing with these soft ass dudes because you don't like the outcome. If you get a man more direct, more honest with you, more upfront with you, you might get what you want, what you're looking for in a man. But instead, y'all used to them passive dudes, them laid back dudes, them two dudes are just too cool, and y'all get disappointed because then you find out you could just bully and dog walk his ass, and then you don't like the end game. But when a man is going to sit there and stand up, tell you no, or you may not like it at the moment, but you respect him more. You appreciate him more. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Go ahead, Viz. You want to say something?
See, I was gonna say some women love it when you tell them no. It's a turn on for some of them. It's some that'll test you just to see if you gonna tell them no, or if you gonna go along with whatever they saying. So I think that I think that women pick and choose when they feel that a person is being harsh to them. You didn't do this, I'm mad at you. So what you're saying, even though it's true, is harsh. So I'm a block it out, or I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna show emotion to make you feel sympathy for calling me out. So it's a post. It was a saying that women say, and it was a post that was on Facebook. It'd be like, ladies, if he's telling the truth, and you losing the ladies, if you losing the argument and he telling the truth, what's the first thing you do? All the women cry. So y'all know, women know what they doing, but it's that cat and mouse game. But they pick and choose who they want to do that with. I'm pretty sure if Aisha really liked that guy that she felt was being mean to him, that nigga will still be around right now. But she ain't really like dude. So just off the strength of her not liking him, it was like, oh, fuck that nigga. So that's the harsh reality of it.
Viz, it's not that she doesn't like him. It's that she doesn't like what he reveals in her. That's really what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something recently that I learned, and they're like, when you carry a certain demeanor about you, or a certain energy, or a certain spirit, you're always going to disturb the demons inside of a lot of people, because they're not going to acquiesce, or they don't know how to acquiesce, and sort of it just disturbs the way they talk or how they handle things. It's just something about how you deliver things, and sometimes you gotta put things plainly. I think unfortunately we've gotten to a certain space in our culture where we can't be direct or blunt. Like, everything has to be handled with like kid gloves, or we have to put a lot of sugar on it, and it's just
Okay.
I just think that I no, that's absolutely not true, because some people are just mean people. Like, and I think because of past trauma, you can identify that. Like, and with this person, I absolutely liked him. Obviously, I wouldn't have went on a date or anything, but for the reason why he went off was simply, I'm gonna tell y'all the reason, and y'all tell me if he crazy. Okay? He literally, we were together and we both had our chargers. I accidentally took his charger with mine. Like, you know how you just grab it up all? So by the time I get home, I have text messages, voice messages literally going off on me saying, "Did you steal my?" Like, it was insane. And I was like, I'm going to Amazon you a charger, today. You know what I mean? And I never talked to him again. And I'm like, he's psycho, he's mean. And he had other signs that he was just a mean person. And I was like, no, I can't. I think that some people just have a mean demeanor, like they're just not nice. He wasn't nice.
Go ahead, Clout.
All right. Now watching that video, I think that being that these are like obviously like church guys, and I think that usually when it comes to churches, the biggest demographic of people who attend are women. I do think that the advice that they gave was catered to that. Particularly even with the use of the word harsh, right? Because harsh, like if I bring up the definition, it's unpleasantly rough or jarring to the senses, right? And then, another definition we have here is having an undesirably strong effect. Now, when you keep those definitions in mind, what happens is that harshness becomes subjective, because again, I'm the one who gets to decide how potent or undesirable the effect of something is, and I'm the person who decides whether something is jarring or not to my senses. And because of that, I think harsh is more so just used as a cop-out. Like, I think, especially in the dynamic that they were talking about, which is men and women, harsh is usually used to say that whatever you're saying is too jarring to my senses. But that jarring to the senses could be feeling a feeling of being wrong, feeling a feeling of shame for what they've done. There are a lot of negative feelings that are associated with the correct course of action or being corrected. And so I just find that harshness is a word that is often conveniently used to discredit men in general, from giving advice, from holding women accountable, or from even the right to have feelings or the right to be upset. Like if we use an example in Aisha's situation, she took this guy's charger, and men are human, right? So if someone accidentally takes your charger, you have a right to be upset. You have a right to be bothered. You don't know how that could have thrown off the course of his day, his ability to do business, whatever it was that he needed. It may have severely handicapped him for the day. And for him to communicate that he's upset or communicate that concern, whatever the tone in which he did it, to some degree, he has a right to feel upset because you did do something that inconvenienced him. But typically, we don't put a spotlight on what he felt and how he was inconvenienced. The spotlight she put on was in his reaction, and she claims that his reaction was harsh, which seeks to discredit his feelings, really, because again, something happened to him. You didn't lose your charger, he lost his charger. He now doesn't have the ability to charge his phone. That could mean he can't pick up his kids. That could mean that he missed a huge opportunity at work. There's a lot of things. And if he's a person who particularly put his charge in a particular place and wasn't irresponsible, then that inconvenience was at no fault of his own, So so that's one thing I wanted to get at. How she mentioned harsh. Also, another support to my idea on that is what Arya said. She said women have a more sensitive nervous system and can feel under attack a little bit more, and that goes along with the flexibility of the word harsh, because if your nervous system is a little bit more sensitive to certain sounds, maybe one of those sounds might be a lower vibrato voice, a deeper voice tone, which a lot of men naturally have. So if you're a little bit more sensitive to that tone of voice, and a man is speaking in his natural tone of voice, along with telling you something that may make you ashamed of what you've done, or something that may make you feel wrong, that might jar your senses, and that might make you feel uncomfortable and make you feel attacked. And then in your mind, it would be justified as calling that harsh. But again, because it's self-defined, I don't think it's a fair to use the word harsh. On top of that, I think there's a lot of evidence that even though we're saying harshness doesn't work, because that's debatable, right? But I think there's a lot of evidence that a stern or quote unquote more harsh approach is actually more effective. And I think we see that with police officers, how they deal with people. I think sometimes we see that like even in a situation of emergency, sometimes a more stern and more direct approach is way more effective at getting people to move. We see it with children. I definitely know that whenever I've had experiences dealing with children, using a more stern and more direct tone is usually a lot more effective than a softer, gentler tone. They usually respond. Even animals, like I've been around women who have tried, oh, calm down, and I tell a dog, hey, relax, and it responds. And then also, I think we have cultural tropes that support this idea, right? We've all heard the term "nice guys finish last." We've all heard that. So if we've heard that culture that nice guys finish last, and that goes against the idea that a less harsh or more gentle approach is more effective even with women, because we see so many circumstances where women don't really have a problem leaving a nicer guy, right? Like a guy who's a little bit nicer will be seen as kind of lame, And those guys get left without much resistance. But we find that toxic relationships, where the behavior and the treatment is much quote unquote harsher, we find that a lot of times there's a hard time for those relationships to end. You'll see that like a woman might go back and forth with someone who's physically aggressive with her or verbally aggressive with her a lot longer than she might do that with someone who's much nicer and much kinder in his approach with her. So I don't know if there's any actual evidence to the idea that this quote unquote less harsh approach is more effective, but I do think that it sounds better. It sounds better. I think it's more culturally acceptable to say that. I think that if you're a decent human being, obviously the best advice that you would try to give is, catch more honeys with vinegar and to be more soft-spoken and to watch your tone. But I really find that really only applies to men. I don't really think that women are told to the same degree that they need to police their tone or the voice that they're speaking with in the same way. And I don't, and I think it's very rare that any tone that a woman uses is going to be considered harsh. It might be considered a little mean. It might be considered annoying, but I think it's very rare that I hear a woman expressing negative anything referred to as harsh. So those are my thoughts on it.
You're correct. We're not referred to as harsh. We're referred to as a bitch, right? It's not harsh. There have been many times when a woman can be extremely direct, not raise her voice, speak in a calm tone, and still be seen as the bad person. And angry in corporate America, you could be seen, if you're a Black woman working with a lot of different minorities, the angry Black woman, just because you are direct and you get straight to the point. I think there is a confusion here with being direct, stern, and being harsh. Like Louise said, harshness comes in your tonality. Are you yelling? Are you extremely aggressive with your words? Instead of you saying, I didn't like this, this is what needs to happen, blah, 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 blah. You saying, bit, blit, yeah.
Can I just interject for 1 second?
Now, hold on, Clout, because you talked for a long time and I'll let you talk. I think I understand when you're saying that harshness is subjective. It is. I 100% agree with that. It can be subjective. But from my perspective, I think harshness comes more in the way that you communicate how you feel. Are you yelling? Are you screaming? Yes, men have lower voices, but you guys can also get very loud. Just like a woman who is arguing with a man, she can express her feelings without being irate. The minute that she's irate, you're no longer listening. Just like the minute a man is being irate towards a woman, she's no longer listening. I feel like regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, the way that you communicate with your partner is going to be extremely important. And you have to be very cognizant in the way that you express how you're feeling, even when there are high tensions, even when you both are extremely frustrated with the situation, you still have to come to that conversation with ease in a way that the message can be heard and understood. The last thing I wanted to point on is everyone keeps jumping on Hink, right? Hink can come off very strong in his opinion. When I first started this podcast with Hink, I was like, ooh, he's tough, but he's very consistent, which makes me realize that that is just his personality. He is extremely blunt in how he feels about things. Now, when Darwin had that argument with, I think her name was Jazz that one time, he was harsh. He took low blows. He wanted to hurt her. Yes, he felt that he was going to discredit her argument, but in every other conversation, he has been calm, cool, and collected. The minute that your personality shifts and changes and you become more aggressive in your tone, meaning louder, disrespectful, low blows, that's when you become harsh.
All right. See, just to respond to that, the issue I have with that is how you characterize that, right? Is like, okay, well, I could say with a calm tone, I hope you die. So you're saying it's about yelling and all of that. And I think it has nothing to do with that, because I could say in the calmest voice that I hope you die. I could say in the calmest voice that I want the worst thing to happen to you. And I can say in the loudest, most aggressive voice that I love you and want the best for you. So that's why I say harshness, again, is subjective, because you get to decide what's harsh, right? And no matter what I say, you get to decide how it influenced your nervous system and how it influenced your feelings. I could say as calmly as I want, you know, I'm really disappointed in you. I really don't appreciate the way you spoke to me the other day. And if you don't want to hold accountability to that, you could say, oh, the way he spoke to me, he must think he's my dad or something. You know, he was so disrespectful, so rude and so hard. And all I said was, I'm disappointed. I've seen parents say to their kids in a calm tone, I'm disappointed in you. And the kids burst into tears. Immediately burst into tears because the thought of their parents being disappointed in them was overwhelming. So I don't know. Again, the word harsh is just so subjective that I feel like it really can't be used in play because anybody can decide at any given point that anything is harsh if they don't want to hear it.
But now we're talking about emotional maturity. If you're dealing with an emotional mature partner, when you hold them accountable to something and you say it in the way that you just gave that example, they're going to receive it. If you're dealing with someone who's not as emotionally mature, right? An immature person, someone who hasn't dealt with that, who doesn't hold themselves accountable for anything, of course they're going to respond like that. You then went on to explain a child's behavior. Children are still growing. They're learning how to take accountability for their actions. So of course, sometimes if you tell them, I'm very disappointed in you, they are going to break down in tears. But your significant other, the person that you're dating, should not do that. If you are both emotionally mature, they should be able to receive that. But if you come to me like, I can't stand your ass, bitch, you always blah, blah, blah. Who are you talking to? And why do you feel the need to convey how you feel about this situation in that manner?
Okay, that's fair. Do you think there are a lot of men who are coming across women who are not emotionally mature?
I don't know. I think I had this conversation before that I'm an emotionally mature person and I surround myself with emotionally mature women. So I don't have a lot of experience of knowing that, right? Especially at this big grown age. Now, maybe back in the past, yeah, of course, right? Still had growing and learning to do. But I'm pretty sure there are men on here that say that they can testify to running into women that are like that. Just like there are women that run into men that are like that. It goes both ways.
I think that most people, most women especially, that use emotionally mature, using that term, they're typically not emotionally mature. They're probably one of the least emotionally mature people having the conversation. So those words for me, those hot words or trigger words or whatever you want to call it, when people use that, typically they're the least emotionally mature person that's bringing it up, and that's why they're mentioning it.
All right,
Also a perspective.
Go ahead, Ty.
No, I was just telling VS that's also a perspective. I don't know his experience. So I mean I understand that, but
I would say for you, Ty, for sure. You definitely one of the more level-headed, you know, you see it from both perspectives for sure. Not saying everybody on the panel is the opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but typically what we see, especially in social media, on the YouTube panels, people that throw out, oh, this person isn't emotionally mature, is literally you're not emotionally mature, and that's why you're pointing it out. You're really just you're mirroring what it is that you are of yourself.
Right. And I ask that question too, because I do find that I see a lot of people use terms like harsh. And then when you examine the situation that they're saying is harsh, it's like, well, this isn't actually a cruel situation. You know, like harsh is like cruel, you know what I mean? And it's like, is this cruelty? Like, did this person really like maliciously just destroy your emotions? Or did they just say something that you really just didn't want to hear in this moment, or something that's really inconvenient for the argument that you guys are having right now, you know, or something that might have hurt your feelings? That may be true. But I just find that a lot of times, particularly when it's woman to man and they're saying, oh, he's so harsh, you know, his tone is just so harsh. A lot of time it just doesn't seem that way from the male perspective. It just seems like a guy might be a little bit passionate. Maybe he's a little excited. But I just find that whenever I see it used, or not whenever, but most of the time when I see it used, it's really being used to discredit the guy and to just say, okay, well, what you're saying isn't worth hearing, because if I can label you as this harsh, mean person, then that justifies not addressing or even hearing what you brought to the table.
Yeah.
I think also too, Clout, that a lot of people are so used to being lied to that the mere truth is so offensive, and they don't know how to really just sit in it, right? I just think that most people are being told what they want to hear as opposed to telling what will be more beneficial to them.
Yeah. And to the point, that's a good point. One of the things that, and I've heard it, is I never had a man talk to me like that. I never had someone tell me that. And the other thing too is that, like when you're a man, you're gonna have to lean on trusting your judgment with certain situations, right? If not all, like you have to operate on a frequency where you're seeing most things in a logical way. Because if you kind of waver every time somebody criticizes you for doing something wrong and you're not self-aware, then you may just start to give in to what they saying, and the whole time they wrong, or whole time you should have probably used that tone. But to Hink's point, a lot of times when you are using that quote unquote harsh terminology and they haven't been talked to like that, sometimes they go back and they reflect and they come back and they have a conversation about it. When they do have a conversation about it, it's like, I thought about what you said, and although you were right, I still didn't like the way that you expressed yourself. And how when I have those conversations, I say, well, you got to eliminate that but. If I'm right, when you say that but, you're still not accepting the whole full accountability. Now, if you want to have a conversation with me afterwards, I just don't want you to lose the message, because the message to me is the most important thing outside of the tone. So if you can hear the tone and also hear the message, that's better than you just saying, I'm not hearing anything you're saying because I don't like the way you said it, or I wasn't even listening. The minute I heard like you sound like aggressive. And as a man, if a lot of people are telling you something, then I think you can go back and you can look at it and say, okay, well, it must be true. If every now and then somebody said something, then I think you can kind of lean on like, this person just has something internally going on and they're trying to throw it off on me because they don't want to hear. And you have to be comfortable. If you know you didn't say anything wrong, you weren't raising your voice, and you just pointed out something that was like factual in that moment, then you got to be okay with saying it is what it is. But don't go change it up and switch it up because their feelings are hurt. They should be able to have a conversation like an adult and see if y'all can get somewhere with it. And that's when that like emotionally matureness or emotional intelligence comes in, that where you guys should be able to talk about anything. It's okay to disagree. I don't think everybody's going to agree with every single thing. It's impossible. If you go into any relationship, whether it's romantic, whether it's coworkers, whether it's on the panel, we're going to disagree. When we disagree, how are we handling the situation? It don't even have to be a situation. When people say, I'm not going to argue with you, why does it have to be an argument? That's another thing that they do to try to weaponize. They say, I'm about to argue with you. Why does it have to be an argument? Why can't we just have a conversation about something that we disagree with? When you start putting that argument in there, you're trying to find a way to exit because you're getting uncomfortable. People don't like to be uncomfortable. Think about how people are afraid to just put themselves out there because they are afraid what people might think and how they may look. So people don't like to get uncomfortable in various things in life. But I'm gonna play the video just like one more time, and I'm gonna go to Di and then Amir. I know Amir didn't see it, and I know Di haven't spoke. Anybody else haven't spoke yet? Everybody else spoke. All right. Here we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be complimenting versus competition is what I hear. And I think that relationships suffer is because it's typically a competition and both people are trying to diminish how much they're going to lose. How much ground am I going to lose if I lose this argument? How much authority am I going to lose if I don't say this thing? How much am I going to lose? And so when you're competing for the loss, then you cannot ascertain the gain. And I want to talk about it from both ways. And I'll start with us men, because the Bible says in Colossians 3:19, it says, husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. I think, and I've learned this, one of the things that causes a woman to lock the keys to her heart, and I know infidelity will do it.
Yes, sir.
I know that not feeling safe will do it.
Yes, sir.
I know that her not being able to trust you will do it.
Sir.
You know, you say one thing and do another thing. All of those things do. But I think that one of the biggest doors to a woman's heart that has the most complicated lock, of which only a single key can open, is she is very, very apt not to respond to harshness. That she can forgive you for doing a myriad of different things. But if you are consistently harsh to a woman, I think that locks a door that not even she knows how to always unravel and unlock.
Wow.
Have you ever had an instance where you were harsher than you needed to be? And you wanted, and this is men, because we want this, we can be harsh today and expect that moments after the harshness, she should be fine, we're moving on, and we're going on. But that harshness sticks with her, and it lingers with her. Have you ever had an instance like that?
All right, go ahead, Dad.
I think I agree with him to some extent. I feel like women who are not necessarily healed kind of appreciate harshness based on my experience with my friends. And the more my friends became healed, the less that became effective with them. I feel like I had this problem, and I feel like men, they feel like things are harsh too when you like kind of telling them about themselves. And one thing I've learned to do, just not with men, just in my relationships in general, because I feel like I agree with Aisha. It's a lot of mean people out there. Like I feel like being mean is kind of popular in the area that I'm at. Like people think being blunt without a disregard for somebody else's feelings is being real and not really, you know, considering about getting the message across, but more so getting their feelings across. So I feel like people like that can come off real mean. So what I practice to make sure that I'm not coming off harsh or mean when I'm in my relationship or dealing with people that's in my family who might like make me mad or upset, I try not to curse, because if you're in a heat of emotion, then not cursing would kind of bring you down, because now you're thinking about what you say instead of just saying how you feel. No calling people out their names. So like, oh, that's goofy, you goofy, that's stupid, you stupid. When it goes to that, I think that's when the conversation can kind of go towards harshness. And staying on topic is very important too. Like for instance, in an example that Aisha gave, he accused her of stealing as if what she did was intentional versus asking her and having a conversation. He kind of accused her and categorized her. And it did show lack of emotional intelligence, because you could be frustrated. But if a charger frustrates you this much, then what are we going to do about bigger situations? That's not somebody I would have wanted to speak with either, because as y'all know, I'm very sensitive. But it really, honestly, I had to realize a lot of the stuff I do, it's not just me being sensitive, but my thoughts have been discredited a lot. So it goes back to like most of the time I'm just triggered. I'm not just being sensitive, because these are things I've tried to talk to people in my community about, friends, relationship, and everybody. And they just like, oh, you too sensitive. You too this or you say that. And it's like, no, you got off topic. You're cursing, low blows, calling me out my name. I could literally list off the things you say. Whereas when I ask them, okay, what did I say to hurt you? Sometimes like sometimes I am wrong, but other times when I'm not wrong, they usually just say, well, you made me feel like this. And it's like, okay, I understand how I made you feel. Can you give me the specific words I said so I can make sure I correct that next time I communicate with you? But they're unable to do it because they're just in a state of emotion, which a lot of women do. I do find that. So I find women, do that often. They can't tell you exactly what was said. But I think the most important thing that Ty said, which, like I said, I agree with her 100%, is that the message versus the feeling. I think if people worry about getting a message across versus how they feel across, then they can actually come to some common ground and get through to that person and find a resolution. But when you're focused on your feelings, sometimes the message could come off wrong.
All right. Ready, Amir? All right, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So there's an echo. Hold on. I'll turn down my speaker. That's not the speaker. That's something. Okay. Is the echo going on? No? Is everybody else muted? Okay. I don't know what I can do to make that go away. Is it still echoing?
It's not echoing on our end. Let's just be on your end.
Okay.
I don't hear echo.
Okay. So from what I've noticed is that what the guy said was there is nothing worse than when a woman feels that you're harsh to her. That's one way to lock her heart, he said. And I completely disagree with that. But what do I know? But when he said that, I was thinking to myself, like, I think it all depends on the type of upbringing a girl has. If a girl grows up used to hearing truth, used to hearing bluntness, used to hearing things spoken in a certain tone or a certain way, she's not going to be offended easily about, harshness. I'll give you an example. In my family, the men talk rough. And most American women, if they listen to our men speak, they will say, oh, he's so rude. Oh, he says, bring me the food, put it down, turn off light. And that sounds like, why isn't he nice? It's so rude. But that's the way he speaks. I think the difference is when a woman feels like you speak to her a certain way versus everybody else. If you speak to everybody else nicely or calmly, and then you talk to me and you say, what do you want? Then I'm going to notice there's a difference between the way he speaks to me versus how he speaks to everyone else. That's where the issue would come. But if a man is if he naturally speaks that way, there shouldn't be an issue. But the other thing I was thinking about was, hold on 1 second. I had it in my mind. I had it. Don't forget it. It always happens when we start speaking, forget it. Oh, right. Here it is. I've noticed that in America or the Western world, I know I always bring it up because it's how I see the world. That's the thing. That's the only difference that I can offer you guys as a panel. That's the only difference that I can offer you as a human. What I see is that here in America, it's more focused on being nice and being sweet. And don't say that. This isn't nice. I've noticed that people don't even call each other fat or stupid or something because they're so scared that it's going to hurt them. When the truth is, the person is fat. But in our different cultures, if you go to China, the same thing. They call you fat, but they're just telling you the truth. And they don't get offended. They're usually like, yeah, I know I'm fat. I know that. But here in America, I've noticed it's always like, shh, they're not fat. They're bodied. They're fluffy bodied. They're marshmallow figure. Don't say that. And it's always some kind of soft word and, always be nice. So I don't know if that's part of it, if it's part of that be nice culture that we have here, that a lot of women are so uber sensitive that you speak to them. I've noticed even the men on the panel, sometimes they say the most vanilla thing. The thing that they said is so vanilla to me, but you see women start crying on the panel. JR has seen it many times. We had it back when we had the other panel that we used to have. Girls would start crying. And you're like, all he said was that, women are not listening. Women are trash. That's all he said. It was Anton who said it, but he said women are trash. And then the girl starts crying. But that's because it's just women here have always been taught like everybody's supposed to say it nicely. So I don't know. I'll finish up. I believe that here, the issue is if a person is speaking to you different than they speak to other people, that's when you can say, this person is speaking to me this way because there's something against me personally. But yeah, I guess that's all.
I think that speaks on the point of what Ty was saying with Hink, how once she's seen that Hink was consistent with the way he speaks, that's just the way he speaks. So he's not necessarily disrespecting anybody. So I think that was a good point that was made. Anybody want to respond? Go ahead.
I think that if you don't like mean people, you just don't like them. My dad was a Marine. I was in the Navy. I grew up around very stern. I came from a military family, right? That's why I know that I don't respond well to that. And for my quality of life, I need you to be nice to me. That's just all I'm saying. Like I understand because there's a difference between being stern and being harsh, right? My father was very stern. Like things had to be done a certain way. He was inflexible, right? He's not bending on this, right? But he wasn't harsh in his delivery when he told us those things. So I think that's two different things. Like you can be stern with me. You can say A, B, and C. That's the way my brain operates anyway. But you can't be harsh with me. And I still think that, like I said earlier, like you'll get more from me personally if you deliver it in a nicer tone. If you're being aggressive or if you're being harsh, I'm probably not going to receive your message. And that's just me.
Oh, that seems kind of weird because I know many military men and all of them are extremely stern, direct, and harsh as fuck.
No, he's stern, but he's not harsh. Like he would be cracking up if he seen you guys on this panel. Like when people, he's super nice guy, super impressionable, but he's just not harsh. I mean, me and him pretty much have the same personality. He's not a harsh man like that.
I think that it goes back, and I'm just playing devil's advocate in this, but I think it goes back to you liking that person or not, right? If you using your dad and your family, it's your dad. You know what I'm saying? You love him. You're stuck with him. It's not some random ass nigga on the street. So if some random ass nigga on the street is talking to you the same exact way that your dad is, and you don't really like him, then of course everything that he says is gonna be harsh. So I think that it goes back to that. And I'm curious as well as far as with the Chargers situation, because you said that he was calling you and texting you a bunch of times. You know, you took his Charger. Maybe he was sitting outside in the driveway, and you not answering the phone. Why the fuck ain't she answering the phone? You just got out the car. I need to go here. I need to go there. And I'm sitting here for 10, 15 minutes calling you back to back, and you not answering your phone. Who not gonna be pissed? So I'm just
First of all, that's not true, because didn't realize that the charger was missing until he got back to the house. So whenever he called me, I'm a busy woman. I'm sorry, okay? So the first couple of calls I missed.
I can't believe Jesus. I can't believe Jesus.
I thought that, you know.
How many is the first couple of?
Huh?
How many calls was the first couple of calls?
Twice. Call back. Like, oh, must have something happened. I didn't know what had happened, right? I didn't even know I had it until he said, can you look to see? Because my first reaction was like, no. Oh, yeah, I have it. I'm so sorry. You know, I'll bring it. What do you need? Immediately, like, I'm very apologetic because I know how it would feel. Like, I want my charger too, right? And so I'm very apologetic. I mean, talk to me so reckless and crazy. I was like, okay, this is not the person for me. And my thing is what Dot said, if you'll act like this over something so small, not trying to negate his feelings, right?
Well, to you.
But I am older, and that nothing about that would make me that upset. So in my mind, I'm like, we're not on the same wavelength. He's gonna get this. That's not somebody that I can deal with mentally, and that's just me knowing who I am inside.
Not to mention, if you didn't
Quick
care about
question.
his feelings, you would never send him another one that night.
Yeah, I did. Amazon charged it the same day because I don't play those type of games. What you're not
Quick
gonna do is say
question.
I stole your charger now.
Hold on, Cloud. Hold on, Cloud, for your question. I know Ari was trying to get in, and we'll get to your question. Go ahead, Ari.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these come back to both expressive and receptive communication. Both the person with the problem and the person who's being spoken to needs to be bilateral as opposed to unilateral. So the difference in my mind, because I feel like people are getting hung up on this definition of harsh, because if we're thinking of harsh as assertive, right, then yeah, it's the listener's problem. Like if we're thinking of harsh as just being direct and saying exactly how it is that I'm feeling and why and what I need from you, then it's the receiver's job then to take that information and run with it. But if we're thinking of harsh as aggressive, in my mind, aggressive is unilateral communication. So like what that means is there's only one person's perspective here that matters. And if you're being aggressive with a person, then you might be attacking that person. We've had a lot of people bring up examples of calling somebody names, which in my mind, that's unilateral communication, and that's not effective for any kind of relationship repair, right? So the couple of things that kept coming to mind as people were talking, right, was we were talking about emotional maturity. And to me, emotional maturity comes from a feeling of emotional safety with a person often. So like I can be very emotionally mature with people that I respect. And you know, if I'm in partnership with somebody, hopefully I respect them, right? But I am petty as with people that I don't respect, right? Like if I feel that you're coming at me sideways and I feel that you're not engaging in bilateral communication, then I kind of shut down. And so then as the recipient, I'm not engaging in bilateral communication. I'm completely unilateral. So both the person who is speaking and the person who's being spoken to need to understand that there are two perspectives here, and both of those matter. And if both of those people are keeping that in mind, both the person listening, right? Because me as a listener, I might be like, okay, he's being real assertive and I don't like what he's saying. And maybe he's catching me up and he is correct, right? Then I need to recognize that just because I feel this way doesn't mean it's the truth, right? And I should still be listening to you and trying to understand your perspective. But if you as the speaker are emphasizing your perspective alone, which Charger guy feels like he was, right? Like, you know, you obviously were saying, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it. So Charger guy is like, well, all I'm focused on right now is the impact that it's having on me and how irritated I feel, right? And so that's unilateral communication. If both of those parties can look at both of those perspectives, then you're going to get somewhere, you know? So, yeah.
I just wanted to ask, should bilateral communication be expected from someone who's been wronged? So if I've done something to harm you, or I've done something to hurt you, and now you don't, like, are you entitled to feel like my perspective matters when you're the one who's been harmed?
Yes. If I want this to be repaired. So when we talk about that emotional safety, right, from a psychological perspective and from a behavior analytic perspective, which is the only one that I have, right? If your goal is emotional safety and growth as a couple and continuation of this relationship, right, then that comes from what we call in psychology rupture and repair. So emotional safety grows when we have conflict and we work through it as a team instead of working through it as opponents. So yes, you might be completely wrong, right? Like maybe I cheated on you and I'm wrong and you didn't do anything, right? If you want to continue that relationship, then yes, you need to engage in that bilateral communication. If you don't, then get petty. That's fine. I don't know.
Okay, well, I asked because, like, okay, like if someone has been wronged, sometimes I wonder, like, okay, or if someone has done wrong, it can feel like they forfeited their right to kind of, you know, have something to say, because it's like, okay, well, like if I was to walk into the room with my girl and I punch her in the face, I'm mad, I'm upset about something, I punch her in the face, and she now wants to communicate about the
What?
fact that I punched her in the face, right? I don't see how I could feel that I have any right to have anything to say when I violated. You know what I mean? I just punched her in the face, like, for no reason. It doesn't matter at that point. And I don't feel as though she would be entitled to hear me out, even if she wanted to repair the situation,
And
because I think that
so
in that moment, only one perspective does matter, and that's the injured party. Like, I don't think a person who has violated the relationship entirely really has a place to speak when they're wrong. I think we have to address that you were wrong first, and then once I've been able to acknowledge my wrongness or address that I'm wrong first, then maybe we can have a conversation that's bilateral. But I just
yeah.
don't even think that's fair to expect bilateral communication when someone else has been violated.
So when the example that I'm getting, or basically the communication style that I'm describing, it doesn't necessarily apply to a situation in which somebody's rights have been violated, right? So like when we're
Okay.
talking about abuse, when we're talking about physical violence, when we're talking about intentional disrespect that is ongoing and continuous, right? Like that's violating a person's rights, and that's basically the person who engages in that behavior forfeiting their right to that person's presence. Like if you walked in the door and you punched your girl in the face, right? Like you've just forfeit your access to her from just a human perspective. You just violated her bodily autonomy, violated her rights. But when we're talking about a charger, or we're talking about, I just read this situation online where a guy, he like provides for his family, and the wife agreed to make Sunday dinner, and he had to work and came home, and she had made something that was other than what they talked about, right? Like I just read this situation. There's all these arguments and comments going on online. That kind of situation, right? Like he probably was sitting at work excited about this dinner that we agreed to. And, you know, you had the credit card, you went and bought the recipe, like you got all this stuff. I'm sitting here telling my coworkers that I'm getting my favorite dinner, and I walk in the door and it's something else and I don't like it, right? That's a situation where both parties, like he could say, hey, maybe you didn't have it in you, maybe you didn't have the energy. It also kind of violated my boundary because this is what we agreed to, right? And then on her part, she can understand, like, I was taking care of the kids all day. This kid puked 17 times and I didn't really want to touch all on the food, right? Like whatever it was, she can have that perspective and understand her husband's disappointment. So like I think if we bring up an extreme example, that's not really what this applies to.
All right, I wanna use the example of and it's gonna be the last thing I reference, but I want to use the example of the charger thing, right? Because when Aisha mentioned the charger thing, which was interesting to me, she said, if he's gonna react that way to something so small, right? And my immediate response or thought was small to you, right? So it's like in that circumstance, right? Like his charger was taken against his will, you know, he's upset. And not only is he upset, but it seems as though his entire perspective wasn't even heard out, because because he's upset, right? So if he's upset, clearly it's a big deal to him. But to be told that, you know, you're overreacting to something that's not a big deal is that bilateral communication, or is that unilateral communication?
I never taught him that he was overreacting to anything. Let's start
See,
there.
so
I
yeah.
never taught him anything. All I did was super nice, gonna mail you your charger, and not just completely blocked him and never talked to him again. I never said
Okay,
anything.
so
this
you
form
basically blocked him because he was upset about a mistake that you made.
I blocked him
Right?
because to me that was the red flag.
And because
the
you
way he
didn't think his
reacted.
reaction was
His reaction to me, my personal opinion, I don't know how anybody else was on this panel, but my personal opinion was I didn't like the overreaction, right? To me,
what's the appropriate reaction that someone should have to someone inconveniencing their day, but however they did? Like how do you get to tell him how to react to that?
he can react however he would like, and I can choose not to like that reaction and never speak to him again. And so that's kind of what happened.
So
what it sounded
I
like
feel
to
like we're
me.
crossing a thin line.
Hold on,
Because
y'all. Let's let Ari.
there's a thin line between that and like gaslighting, right? Because it's like, well, so essentially, like, he's upset, he's communicating that he's upset, and you cut him off and choose to stop communication because he was upset with something you did, which now is essentially can essentially make him now feel guilty for even expressing himself to you. And I'm like, I just don't understand how that's a fair scenario, you know?
I feel like he yelled at me, he was disrespectful, and he was aggressive. Those three things, to me personally, I don't want to date anybody that acts that way.
But how would you react to
So,
someone who inconvenienced your day? Like, how do
let
people
me,
normally react to people who inconvenience
because
their
people
days?
have taken my charger. Okay, I've gotten in the car with friends. Oh my God, you accidentally took my charger. Oh, not a big deal. I'll bring it to you later. I would never, right, react that way. So that's why I think we talk about this all the time. I try to hang around like-minded people, right? Nobody that I hang around in my space, I believe, would react like that.
Well,
And
and
if they did,
so
I probably wouldn't be their friend. I
the
just
thing
feel
with
that.
the thing with the charger though, like it sounds like if he's calling you names, if he's yelling at you, right? That's unilateral communication because he, yes, is upset. Yes, he's frustrated. But we all have the responsibility to moderate our behavior. Like we can all feel some kind of way, but moderating our behavior is our own responsibility. So on the one hand, I made this mistake and it inconvenienced your day. And as people said, maybe it inconvenienced you to a great extent. Maybe you couldn't get your kids. Maybe you couldn't answer the phone for a business call, right? Like, if I make that mistake, my job then is to do what Aisha did and own up to that mistake, apologize for that mistake, and do what she can to fix that mistake, right? And
I'm
if
gonna jump in.
ordering something same day, that's doing what you can to fix that mistake. But when
But
he
no, she
comes at
said,
you
Oh, I didn't hear
sideways,
the part where she said she apologized. I didn't hear that
yeah,
part.
no, she didn't. Aisha, you just
I don't
said
remember
that you
that
didn't
part.
say anything to him. You said I ain't say nothing to
I
him.
apologized to him off the rip because I had to end up ordering him a charger. And I was like, let me get your address. I'm going to send you the charger. I'm so sorry. Even with me apologizing, my right hand to God, this man was still talking to me crazy and reckless, being disrespectful. And at that point, I'm like, is this man crazy who acts like this over a charger? So I was like, I'm done. Like he has every right. If that's how he normally reacts, he can react like that with somebody else.
Was
All
was
right,
that
so hold on, y'all. Let's make sure you pass the mic too. Let's go and mirror and let's
Well,
check in.
one more question. How come you didn't just turn around and bring him back the charger? Like, why Amazon him a charger that's going to get to him like a day later when you could just spend the
what?
same 15 minutes that you inconvenienced him to turn around and give it back to him?
Well, no, Cloud. I
Hold
think
on, y'all. Hold on. We gotta get other people in there.
I promise I'll be fast. I just watching Aisha as she's talking about the situation, and I just had a response because this is the women who's saying like, I need somebody softer. I need somebody who isn't harsh or isn't rough around the edges. But a lot of you women seem to be some of the harshest women. But you're telling the men that they have to be super soft when, from what I've seen, I haven't seen harsher women than American women. I really haven't. These are the women who have the most attitude. Even Aisha, for example, we're talking, and even as she's admitting that she's wrong, she's twisting her neck and going like this. I didn't have to give it to him. I don't have to. Oh, I said I was sorry. But even while saying sorry, she has attitude and twisting the neck.
I'm sorry, Amira. You obviously don't know me or you're not familiar with Black culture. That's what we do, okay? We talk with our hands, roll our neck.
Oh, hell no.
I promise you, because look, if I call this man today, he's going to say, anybody that I've ever dated, my husband included, that I was with for 17 years, I'm not aggressive with anybody that I've ever been with, right? But I know my triggers. I know because I work in corporate America, so it's how I have to be. Like, this is how I've been in corporate America for 13 years. So, right? So I'm director. I have to be this way, right? So my tone at work and on this panel is very much so straight, as a matter of fact. But when I'm dealing with my husband and my man, nobody that I've ever dated is going to be like, Aisha's mean, Aisha cussed me out. I don't do that, right? Because I don't want that in my house. I don't want that negative energy anywhere around where I lay my head.
But can
right?
you turn it on and off,
Were you dating
Aisha?
dude with
That's
the
the
charger?
thing.
Yes, just like I can turn off my white voice on and off. Just like I call, just like I can do that when I go to work, right? Just like when I talk to certain people. So the way that I react to you guys, the way that I have and my friends, I'm never like that with my man. But he was too aggressive for me. And I tend to like stern men, but you can't be rude and disrespectful to me. And really the bottom line for me was I feel like men are supposed to be the level-headed ones, right? So you guys are supposed to be, he was supposed to be able to calm me and handle that situation without all of it, right? And I think that was the thing that bothered me. Like, you're supposed to be able to call and have this stern conversation and tell me about myself without being rude and disrespectful. And so I think that was the problem to me. The yelling, the being rude, the being disrespectful. It wasn't so much him saying, "Hey, you did this," because immediately I felt bad. I'm like, "Hey, I'm wrong. Let me rectify the situation. I'm a solutions person." So trying to come up with a
Yeah.
solution,
So
and I was respected.
as far as those solutions, how come you never just turned around and just brought him back his charger? Like
Because
why
I was
ship it?
because I was on my way to Dallas.
Hold on, man.
By the time I landed,
I need to.
Hold on, I didn't hear you. You were saying it would have inconvenienced you the way he was inconvenienced?
No, because actually he had dropped me off at the airport. I was on my way to Fort Worth, Texas. So by the time I got to Fort Worth was when he realized he didn't have his charger. So I did the best thing that I could do: Amazon you a charger, because we're not even in the same state.
How did you get his charger? I'm just curious. I'm like, how do you take somebody's charger? Like, how did that even happen?
Because our chargers were plugged up next to each other on the same bed, and I just grabbed up the chargers and I took his in the cords. Didn't even realize I did that until I got home and he asked.
Oh,
So
so you took it from his house.
yeah. Like grabbed it, like, everybody, like, where can I plug my charger? Or you can plug it over here by mine. Okay, cool. When I take you, I grabbed it all up. So to me, it was a
So you
mistake.
couldn't
I
tell the
wasn't
difference
paying
between
attention.
yours and his.
Huh?
You couldn't tell the difference between the one that belonged to you and the one that didn't belong to
Obviously
you.
not. By the time I got there, I had both.
I'm trying to understand this, because first of all,
it's a private situation. I'm a solutions person, so I was trying to rectify the situation.
you was
Go
comfortable
ahead.
enough to be in that man's bed, but you got a problem with him now.
I
Now
wasn't
you gonna
in his
block
bed.
him. You said it
Doing
was
too
plugged
much.
next to his bed.
No, I
You
said
said
he
it was
said plug
plugged
it up
next to
over
his
here
bed.
next to
Ain't
where
that what
I
you said?
plugged up my charger. I didn't say anything about a bed. Don't do that.
So okay,
Right.
now
You literally said his
let's
charger was right next to the bed.
that's
No, I did
exactly
not.
what
I
she
didn't
said.
mention bed. Anyways, I
You
wasn't
literally
sleeping with
said
him.
that.
It wasn't like
You
that.
literally said
It was
that.
a friend that was taking me to the
She don't
airport.
want to admit it. That's
I
what
thought I
Hold on, y'all.
was.
Hold on. I'm
let
about
live
to
on that
switch
lie.
gears.
Oh,
I'm about to switch gears real quick, man. I'm gonna bring you back up,
hey, Ash.
Brittany. I'm
Can I
gonna bring you
say
back
something real
up.
fast, Jeff?
Yeah. We'll let Hank say something, nobody else, and then we're gonna go ahead and switch topic. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just finding this funny. Aisha called me harsh and mean and all that, but you just got with this woman because she got mad when that's just the way black women are in America. But you don't consider yourself harsh and mean, what you just said? This ain't the
I'm
first
not
time.
harsh or mean. Hey, I do
Okay.
not call people heifers.
So is that the only word I said? Harsh is a heifer?
I mean, you've said other things on this panel, but
No, I don't, ma'am. You don't hear me calling y'all a B word like that.
I've never heard you use the B word.
I'm not aggressive with y'all women. I don't cut you off when y'all talking. I just sit there and matter of fact, I just sit there and let y'all cut me off and I just let y'all go. But I'm aggressive. That's what you call me, aggressive. If I was aggressive, I would tell you, shut the fuck up, bitch. I'm talking. I don't do that. That's not how I come off. I let y'all say what y'all
more
say.
or less your tone. You're not disrespectful at all. Like, I don't think
Right
that you're
now,
disrespectful.
you're showing me that you are that, but you calling me though. You calling me that, but I'm in the middle of talking. You just cutting me straight off. You are showing me the example of what you're calling me. Make that make sense.
What are you talking about?
Go ahead, man. Do your thing.
All right, let me go ahead and get these super chats in. BZ Formula BZ $2 says Marshmallow Figure. My soap 199 says, can a person be tone deaf? Big Ant 11 $10 says Aisha in boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. As soon as you arrive, they have a message and don't have time for your feelings. You either get the message or you don't. You made it through, so you got it. And lastly, Abraham Lacey.
$5 says, I am sorry, but our black women's attitude is sexy as fuck. Love that neck popping. All right. Thank everybody that has contributed to the platform. Let's go ahead and introduce this next topic.
Hell no.
And then I'll bring Brittany up. Let's make sure we spread the mic, y'all. Make sure y'all are self-aware when y'all just keep the same people keep talking back and forth. Y'all talking too much, so just let everybody else get some of that talk time. I'll play this clip, and then we'll get into it.
Me to provide safety for you, but you cannot reciprocate it for me. I deserve to feel safe too. A number of black men internally, their internal world is not safe. And yet you want me to provide you with safety that I don't even know for myself. When I say to you that you've harmed me, you give me this rigmarole, that's not safe. When I tell you I'm tired, you get so wrapped up in your responses that you don't even give me the space to be fucking tired. That's not safe. I say to you that I don't feel connected to you. I say to you that you are not meeting my emotional needs. I say to you that I do not feel the way that you talk to me is uplifting, and you continue to do it. That's not safe. But yet you want me to continue to go out in this world and come back and do all of this stuff. You don't want me. You want your idea of me. And if I don't fit that idea, you begin rejecting me. That's not safe.
All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Why men deserve spaces of safety within their relationship. Let's go ahead and let me get Ty in there. I know she's been pretty quiet. Let's make sure we get some of the quiet folks that haven't spoken. Let's go, Ty. Let's go, Ty. Let's get Ash in there and Brittany in there, y'all.
That, you know what, that was a powerful message, right? And I think it's a message that a lot of women do not consider. We can be very self-involved, right? We worry about ourselves, the things we're going through, our emotional turmoils, our battles on the day-to-day. And of course we go through them, but we tend to ignore or not want to shine light on the things that our black men go through. We can march on their behalf, we can speak on their behalf, but it's usually the men in our homes that don't get the support and love that we should be giving them and what we expect from them. So I thought that was, extremely vulnerable of him to talk about, and true, right? A lot of black men feel this way in a lot of black relationships. I'm not going to speak about other relationships because I don't know about them. But in black relationships, I think a lot of men feel this way. And I sometimes find myself having to tell women about themselves in certain relationships and remind them that he is a person with feelings, with thoughts, with emotions, with needs. And just like you want your needs met, you also have to make sure that his needs are being met. And I'm not just talking about sexual, I'm talking about everything on the outskirts of it, right? Emotional, physical, giving him space and time. We have to learn to be okay with that and not to be so obsessed with ourselves and what we're going through, which, ladies, we know we can go through a lot emotionally. But sometimes you have to put that to the side and shine light on what your man is going through and what he actually needs, especially if you want your relationship to work. So I thought that was an amazing message. I hope a lot of women outside of this panel, of course, heard that and took it in and start to look at themselves and figure out how they can be a better woman to their men and actually show up for them.
Come through, Ty.
I think you wanted Brittany to go next. She ain't been.
He said Ash and then
Ash and Brittany.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Go ahead,
Brittany.
Ash.
Or Ash.
Right, Brittany, Ash, whoever.
Y'all want to flip a coin?
My bad. I thought you all said Ash was on.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can hear us.
I'm on. I'll hop on. Sorry about the little it's definitely spinning. Am I freezing on y'all? Oh, here we go, internet. Okay.
Hey, you know, you need that
I did
aggressive
catch a
internet.
part
That's
of
what you need.
I can't even get one word in. Here you go, Hank. But it's all good. No, it's love. If I start spinning too much or freezing, just let me know, you all.
Your voice is good.
What is the question?
Do men
What was
deserve
the
safety?
question?
And do men deserve safety in their relationships? Men aren't getting space to be safe.
I'm saying it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen.
Oh, for sure. Safety is a thank you. Safety is a human right. You know what I mean? It's, of course, men deserve that. And I think it's important for men to prioritize their self-care, their self-love, their boundaries, just as much as it's important for women to do that, for sure. You want people to show up whole in a relationship. And if their boundaries are being crossed, if they're being disrespected, if they're not taking the time that they need to pour into themselves, then how can they help anyone else and pour into anyone else and love on anyone else? So for sure, men definitely deserve a space to feel safe within a relationship.
That was good.
Go ahead, Ash.
Why is this doing? All right, y'all can hear me.
You're muted.
Yeah,
You gotta unmute
we
yourself.
heard you for a second, and then you remuted yourself.
You're still muted, Ash. You're still muted, Ash.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's not working.
Operator error.
It was working, Ash. You keep unmuting yourself and then muting yourself back.
I think it's like a lag or something.
So much.
She has a delay. Would you want to go, Aria, until Ash gets together?
It's not working.
Was it
So-
a mental lag? What's going on? Mental lag?
We can hear you. Just keep talking.
No, her signal's really bad. She's really bad.
All right. So
Yeah, we got a lot going on.
the thoughts that that I was having was just around the fact that men are socialized to have anger be their default emotion, right? Like when our boys are expressing sadness or vulnerability or anxiety, oftentimes they're redirected toward anger instead, because that's the emotion that makes other people feel safe. And so essentially, like, we as women are often upset when our own emotions are misinterpreted. And so, like, if I get upset or I'm trying to be vulnerable with somebody or I'm expressing a problem that I have, I might be called hysterical or shrill or a bitch, or, you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. I'm sorry. But like the way that we treat boys and men is that anger is where they have to default. And so I think when I heard that, I wasn't thinking like physical safety, because in a relationship, like in general, you know, that should be the default. But I was thinking safety to have emotions other than, you know, strength and anger. And I've noticed that with some of my girlfriends and some conversations that I've had. I was married for 10 years. And so like oftentimes we were talking, my friends and I, about like long-lived relationships. What would happen was they would say like, oh, like my husband said X, Y, and Z. And to me, it just sounded like a moment where he was trying to share his emotions. And then it would be like laughed at, or it would be talked about as though it were some weakness in him. And like, isn't he ridiculous because he said this? And so I think the way that you can create emotional safety for a man is by not reacting to those other emotions with disdain, disgust, or humor, right? And just allowing that to be a bigger part of the conversation, especially when we want our own emotions to be accepted and understood and interpreted in the way that they're intended.
I just wanted to jump in there because I strongly disagree with the idea that men are socialized to be angry. I don't, and that anger somehow makes people feel more comfortable. What I think it is, as in the experience of being a man, I think anger is our reaction to not being allowed to express ourselves in other ways. So I don't think that it's that we're socialized to be angry. I think it's that we become angry. You know, like
Yeah. So
just
I said
myself, I've experienced
socialized.
a lot of times in my life where, for example, I've tried to explain myself to a woman, and I've one thing I've noticed particularly is oftentimes, and this happens with women specifically more than men, women will try to rephrase what I said into a way that works for them, or a way that better fits the narrative they would like to paint it. And I find that for me, for example, that's one of those places where I get extremely frustrated, because I'll be very particular with the words I use and very particular with the language I use to describe how I'm feeling. And I'll find that if it doesn't compete with them, they'll change it. I'll say, I'm frustrated. Oh, well, you don't have to get mad. No, I'm not mad. I was very specific about what I'm feeling, which is frustration. The frustration is coming from the fact that you keep characterizing what I'm saying to you as anger, which is trivializing my the trivializing what I'm going through as like an outburst, right? Oh, you're just angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm frustrated, and this is why. And you know, I feel that this is what happens a lot with men. We become angry because of how our emotions are treated and handled, but it's not that anger is just this default setting.
Well, and so when I said socialized toward anger, and by that I just mean when we're talking to young men, boys, teenagers, oftentimes anger is immediately understood and kind of respected, particularly by other kids, you know, but also by parents. That's not to say that men immediately default to anger just in general, but when you teach a person, when you condition a person to know that their anger will be accepted and understood, and their sadness or anxiety or frustration will not, then oftentimes that's the emotion that men are most readily able to express. So that doesn't mean that, you know, that's the only feeling. That doesn't mean that's the first feeling. It just means that's the feeling that people maybe expect. As you said, your feelings might be misinterpreted or translated as though they were anger, right? But also, you know, we're gonna have people that might shut down every emotion but anger because they know what to expect when this emotion is expressed versus another one.
I think that is kind of unfair to solely put that on men as well. Aisha just pointed out that when Amira called her out on that the head snapping and all the other stuff, that's I would deem that as a form of anger. That's frustration. So most of the time, American women don't do that when they're happy. Oh, girl, I'm so happy. They don't do that when they're
Yes,
happy.
we
They
do.
do.
I
They
digress.
do that.
Yes, we do. I'm sorry. It's a
No,
part of
no,
the
that
emotion.
we
I digress.
primarily see that when they're upset. So it's that innately is
Well, and I feel like maybe I said it wrong because I had
because
two
you
responses that
did
are
say
like,
that's men's default emotion.
yeah.
That was
So, yeah, I think I said it wrong because to me, that's not a man's problem. To me, that's a social problem. So if, you know, socially and societally, this is the expectation, then a person becomes conditioned to express one emotion versus another. And to me, that's the point. So when the video is saying like we need to create spaces of safety for men, I agree. And I think that that's why. I think it's because, you know, as women, we don't want to see as much anger, and we say that emphatically. But then at the same time, we respond in a dismissive, minimalizing, way to other emotions. So the emphasis to me is create those spaces of emotional safety for both genders, but particularly men, because we want men to express their frustration before becoming explosive, right? Like a man who is able to express his sadness and frustration and disappointment is a man who is not probably going to punch a hole in the wall, right? He was able to express himself and say how he was feeling and be heard, right? And so then when you create that space, you end up having a situation in which both parties do a little bit better.
I think
Well,
healing plays a large. Oh, go ahead, Hank.
No, go ahead. You already started.
I was just gonna say, I feel like healing plays a large part in just receiving information and giving information. I think that that's what helped me with a lot of the relationships with people I care about, people I can't just cut off who might have these issues, understanding that what they're doing is not an attack towards me, you know? And I do agree with what he said. I feel like, and what you're saying, I see that happen with little boys a lot. Why are you crying? Stop crying like a girl. It was just something on Facebook where a little boy was playing football and he started crying, and the coach told him, stop crying before I put you with the girls, versus asking him, why are you crying, and helping him regulate his emotions. So therefore, not even just that, my daughter just had an issue with a boy in school, and he came up to me, he said, your daughter hurt my feelings. And I said, well, what happened? He said that in second grade she broke my heart, and she's currently, and the way Demaya, she expresses this to everybody, this is her best friend, this is somebody she's getting to know. And I just tried to empathize with him, and you could tell he wanted to cry, but this little boy, the way that crying emotion turned into anger real quick, I was scared, because I'm like, you could kind of see how he's being raised in his life. You can tell that nobody's empathizing with his tears, and they're just telling him to stop crying. It's not worth you crying. When you're a man, you can't cry about this. Now, I do feel like a lot of people coach their kids like that so they don't get bullied in school. Once again, that goes back to society as well. So I do agree with you that when men are under a state of emotion, they tend to display anger, and it's not fair. I don't think it's fair. And I do think that if they learned how to do what Cloud says he does, learn how to express themselves as what the emotion is, then things can definitely get done better. But I do feel like society definitely plays a role in that, because my sister also has a little boy on the football team, and she allows him to express himself. And he doesn't really cry that often because he's allowed to express himself at home, but he is allowed, he tells her, hey, I felt disrespected. This is what he said to me. So then she'll have to go back to the coach. And it's crazy because he wasn't the only little boy on the team that felt like that. The other little boys responded to one coach better than the other coach because the other coach helped him regulate those emotions. It seems like people expect little boys to do that just because they will be men, and not understanding that, hey, these are children. And in order for him to gain an understanding of these wide range emotions, talk to him and say, hey, I understand you frustrated. Let's talk about this. Like I seen one coach, what he did was he asked the little boy, well, why you crying? He said, because I don't think I could do this. He said, well, do you still have energy? He said, yes. He said, can you still breathe? He said, yes. He said, okay, you're frustrated, but I need you to push through this frustration. So he didn't tell him to stop crying, but the little boy did the drill while crying. And then when he got finished, he wiped those tears and he understood, like, okay, I can be frustrated. You know what I'm saying? He didn't tell him to stop crying. And sure enough, the more he continued to do those drills, the tears would soon dissipate. And I don't think a lot of men get that leeway in society.
I will second that.
Well,
I have 3 children, and the youngest of which is my boy. I've got 2 older girls and a younger boy. And of the 3 of them, he's the baby. He should be allowed to cry, and people get the most irritated with him.
To the coach's point, I used to be a wrestling coach. all coaches are not going to coach the same. To the point, to the example that you brought up with the coach telling him that he was going to send him with the cheerleaders. The little boy got water in his eyes on the football field. That's not something that you cry about. The football field isn't a location where you can show these extremely soft, emotional moments, because that can literally cost you. So it's something that we have to instill into young boys to let them know, hey, everybody is not going to boo-boo cry with you and hold your hand and say, oh, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? That's not realistic. That's not what happens in real life. So if we're teaching young boys, young black men at that, and we're all aware of what type of environment black men live in. So if we're teaching young black boys with no daddy around that it's okay to behave like this, and that they're going to expect for somebody to say, oh, Daquan, is what's wrong, Daquan? And that's not realistic. So we have to be realistic and understand that different men are going to bring different dynamics. I've had some amazing men in my life that was extremely direct and straight. Hey man, shut the fuck up and get back on the field. And then I had some that was like, hey, look, check it out, man. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna get back to it tomorrow. It all varies from person to person, from coach to coach. And that's the real world. That's what prepares young men to be law-abiding citizens that can be emotionally mature and go through life and handle things when shit gets tough. But when we go this other route that y'all want to go, that's where we have all of these men beating up women, they shooting up this club, they crashing out, they doing all of this emotional reactions. That's where that happens. So we can't feed into that. I'm always speak against that.
Well, I'm gonna just say it's a difference between telling him, okay, wipe your tears and get back on the field, and telling him I'm gonna sit you with the girls, as if experiencing that emotion is only for girls. It's a
No,
big
I
difference.
guarantee you that
Kids
wasn't the first
cannot read
time we
through
did
the
that.
lines. Kids cannot read through the lines when you say things like that. So that's gonna make him feel like he cannot have the emotions that he have. You have to remember, these are not men yet. You're building them to be men. So the best thing to do is to give him more clarification on why he's experiencing that emotion, and a better way to deal with that emotion versus telling him to shut it off. I feel like
Can we
telling
share?
him to shut it off causes men to suppress their emotions. And then that's why you got the man out here beating on women, because he don't know how to express his frustration in a type way. He only know how to express anger.
Can we get Hank in? Can we get Hank in? Because we have mostly the main people talking. Do you mind, Hank? Do you want to stay?
No, I think Ash is supposed to go for me.
Okay.
That's what he put in the
I think that everybody had a valid point. I can't even see your name. Was that Di? Di, I feel like us being women, we typically are more of emotional beings than men. That's not saying that men aren't emotional, but I just feel like in our culture, we kind of raised, a lot of boys were raised by their moms instead of their dads. So a lot of them are being emotional and acting in a way that a woman would instead of a man, which is, all right, I feel this way, and then thinking logically and coming up with a solution to their problem. So I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like a man should best show a little boy how to handle his emotions. And yeah, you can cry, but why are you crying in front of all of these people at your game? It's no reason for you to be crying. Suck it up. You're gonna handle it. You know what I'm saying? Channel that energy. You don't have to cry. There's moments where you do need to cry, but right now you're not crying while you're playing the football game. You get what I'm saying? I was one of those women that in my marriage, like the first half, well, not the first half, the last half when it was like really bad, where I wasn't listening to my ex-husband. Like, so I would hear what he was saying, but I wasn't hearing in a way where where I was understanding it, because I wanted to reply back because I was hurt too. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm hurt too. So it wasn't like I was actually listening to him, because I didn't feel like it. It was just like, I'm hurt too. So okay, and you know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of times women that behave like that is like a response of them being hurt, which I'm not saying that is a good thing, but later on down the line, I had to once I started dating again and we got into a better place, I started to understand where he was coming from, where I wasn't so guarded and where I wasn't as like combative. So I was just like, damn, I was like this or I was like that. I could have been better at listening to how he felt versus listening to kind of give him a reply. And a lot of times I feel like that's what women do. Instead of listening to the man saying, hey, yeah, I feel this way, we try to be like, okay, well, we try to give them a solution when they're not asking for it. They're for you to give them a solution on what they should do. They want you to change the behavior of how you're making them feel. And that takes a lot of accountability. And a lot of times women don't want to do that.
I was going to say, I agree with Ash for one. And I thought the argument or the debate between Di and Viz was a clear representation of the struggle we have nowadays between women and men in raising their children, right? Naturally, Di, you feel that you should talk your child through those emotions. Talk to him and explain to him why it's okay for him to cry and why he's feeling those emotions, and get him to understand that that's the nurturing side of you. Whereas Viz, as the man, is saying, okay, you cry, but you need to get back in there and keep it going. Because men are way more blunt. He's going to be way more straightforward. I think the issue that we're having is that both of you guys are correct, because you're both going to play your role, but we have to allow the man, as Ash was saying, to take that lead in this situation, especially when dealing with boys, right? Because if we don't, then we do end up with those young men who are crash outs, who don't know how to deal with their emotions, who respond to things like we would respond to them, because we've raised them to be women rather than actually allowing the man in their lives to make them men. So exactly what Viz was saying, where he had coaches that told him, suck that shit up, get back on the court. That's what they need. They need that, because the world is going to tell them to suck it up and get back out there and keep pushing.
It's the disrespect behind it that I didn't like. You don't have to be disrespectful to be stern. And I think that's where people get it confused.
But I don't think it's disrespect.
He said, shut the fuck up and get back on the field. That's disrespectful.
It's not disrespect for a young man.
It's disrespect.
But telling him, hey, cut that out, get back on the field with the same
it's
sternness,
you as
is
a
two
woman.
different things.
Right. And that's what I'm
two
trying to
different
get you to
things. You don't have to curse at a kid like that to get it through.
It's you as a woman telling a grown man how to raise a boy to be a man.
Right.
That
like
that
the
doesn't
argument
work
shouldn't
like
even be
that.
argued, because that
feel
it
like that's why
literally does not fit. It does not fit. You can apply all of that mentality to your girls, right? Because that's how women will deal with women. That's how we're going to approach situations. But you can't apply that to your boy. Boys need tough love. Boys need that roughness. Boys have way more energy. They're way more aggressive in nature. They're going to go out there and attack things. So they have to learn how to deal with that. We can't soften them up.
So I have a question. It's okay for me to talk to a man that way then?
Let me finish.
You're not a man.
We cannot soften them up and then send them out into this world and expect them to be able to hold their own. That's why they struggle so much, because we've made them too soft. It is not our job to raise a man. You're not a man. It doesn't matter how much you study it, how much you look into it, how much psychology you study. You're not a man. You cannot raise him to be a man. You can try your best, but there's always going to need to be some type of man figures there. And if they think that's the best way to handle boys, which most men do, then that's probably the best way. It shouldn't be an argument there. Go ahead, Cloud.
Well,
Yeah, I
well,
wanted to add because
he
I
been trying to go
I
for a minute.
definitely
He
I
been trying to
definitely
go.
agree to an extent with what Di was saying, right? Because
Sorry, Hank.
I definitely think when it comes to boys, I think it's very beneficial to ask them what's wrong. Like, because I deal with kids all the time, and whenever I'm around boys and they start crying, I never tell them to stop crying. I always ask them, why are you crying? And I find that by forcing them to logically explain to me why they're crying, they figure out on their own that whatever they're crying about is probably not worth crying about, just by being acknowledged. And one thing I found, which was interesting about what Di was saying, was that in my experience, I find that that's what most men do. Like, in my experience, I find that it's more like what Ash was saying. It's like, I find that women are actually the ones who don't know how to handle boys' emotions. And because they don't know how to handle boys' emotions, they want them to stop crying. They want them to stop reacting their way. Where I find that when dealing with men, we'll say to the kid, hey, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Okay. Are you bleeding? Are you okay? So why are you crying? Then he'll look at himself and be like, wait, why am I crying? I'm not bleeding. I'm not hurt. And then he'll just run back off and start playing again. And I feel like it's the moms that are like, oh my God, baby, you hurt yourself. Oh, mommy will take you off the field. You don't have to play again if you ever want to play again. Oh, I love you so much, sweetheart. Like, I've seen kids like drop something. I've been around moms with their kids, right? And like the kid fall, and I see it in her face. She's ready to go get in my mode. And I'd be like, grab her, be like, yo, leave that, don't touch him. Do not touch him. Give it 5 minutes. She'll wait, give it 5 seconds. She'll wait for 5 seconds. The kid will get up off the ground, look around, look at her reaction. And when he sees that she's not reacting the same way, he'll be good. He'll just go and walk in his merry way. But as soon as she does all that, oh, baby, the kid starts bawling, crying. You know, I got one girl that I was talking to for a while, and I was around her kid or whatever, and this was years back, but he was like addicted to this iPad. Like, he was so addicted to the iPad, and anytime he would cry about that iPad, she would just give him the iPad to shut him up. I'd take the iPad from him and be like, all right, bro, sorry, you can't be on the iPad. You're on it too much. Stop. Like, what do you want me to do? I'll put the TV on for you. I'll give you another option, but you can't have the iPad right now. And I reasoned to him and explained it to him, and he would get it. So I definitely agree that when it comes to boys, you can just talk to them. You can just ask them what's wrong, give them the opportunity to explain themselves, and most emotional situations will sort their way out.
Cloud,
And
just
I
one more
don't think it
thing
makes
with
it
the coach.
soft. It softens them to ask them what's wrong. But I don't necessarily agree with, cursing them out neither. But I do get what Viz is talking about, because like, boys, we don't take stuff like that as like my one of my best friends, when he calls me, every time he hits me on the phone, yo, what up, ugly? Like, that's literally how we talk to each other. Like, I've never ever felt any type of way about him saying what up, ugly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just what we do. Like, when we were young, we used to snap on each other for hours and just die laughing. So guys take it a little differently than girls too.
And the coach I'm talking about was so extreme that a boy had broke his arm. I'm not even lying. Broke his arm. The mom was looking down there because she's raised boys before, so she didn't want to go down there. After the game, she took him to the hospital, found out he broke his arm. Do you know that little boy, when he went to the field crying, that's exactly what they told him to do? They didn't even ask him what was wrong. That boy's arm was broke the whole damn game because he was scared to disappoint his coach with the emotion that he was feeling.
And,
That's why
and
I
guess
said
what?
it's
And that
not
comes,
what you
that
do,
builds
it's how
character.
you do it.
That builds character. I when I was in high school, I had fractured my middle finger, got off the field, didn't even know it. Hey, coach, something wrong with my finger. Go to the athlete person or whatever. That motherfucker take my shit together, went back out on the field, fractured the other one because it was taped together. So what?
But you got the tape. He
It's
didn't even
part.
get the tape. He didn't get the.
My
They didn't send him
point.
to see the nurse. They didn't do none
My
of that.
point.
He
My
sat there
point
with a
is.
broke arm.
My point is, regardless, it builds character. That may be something that's toxic, or it shouldn't have happened or whatever. But guess what? That young man is going to be able to make it through some shit because he spent an hour with a broken arm. He's going to be able to say, man, this ain't shit. I played a whole game with a broken arm. But because you want to go as, oh, what's wrong? Yo, baby, I'm a baby. Now you got a nigga that's gonna be 30 years old, living in your basement, sleeping on your couch because you wanted to take him off the field. Go ahead, Hank. I know you've been waiting for a minute.
So let me say this, man. Every mother, single mother, should give their kids up by the age of 9. Y'all don't need them no more. Give your sons away to the fathers. Give them away. Because y'all ain't going to do nothing but make little dick suckers. That's all y'all going to do. Now, if you want to raise a little dick sucker, then you keep that little motherfucker. But if you don't want that, give it to the father. Because this is some bullshit. I don't understand. And this is what I was talking about. Now, you was cutting people off. Ain't nobody called you harsh, aggressive, none of that. But let Hank do some same shit. Oh, he harsh, he mean, he nasty. I'm glad I got my box of tissue right next to you. Y'all hurt my goddamn feelings. I'm sick of y'all. Sick of y'all hurt my goddamn feelings. I got my box of tissue in case I start crying. Why? Because y'all making fun of me. Nah, fuck that. I don't give a shit. It don't matter to me. But let me say this. As far as a man being vulnerable, my man can't afford to be vulnerable with y'all ladies. Y'all won't give him a safe place to be vulnerable. It's not safe to be vulnerable about y'all. We heard a couple shows ago how if a man was to lose his job, he's telling you, I lost my job. You know what I heard a couple ladies say? I'm out. They gave that man the deuces and I'm out. He was being vulnerable. He was sharing and expressing himself. They didn't want to hear it. I give you another time. When I was talking to Di and I was expressing, and I sat there, was talking about a man crying and expressing himself. That said, oh, I would feel bad for him and do this. Coco said, why you crying like a little bitch for? Exactly. That's the majority of women. They don't give us a safe place to be vulnerable with you. We can't share certain things. That's why we would go to our guys and we would tell them every goddamn thing. We would love to tell our wives. We would love to tell our girlfriends. We would love to tell our women. But we know she can't handle truth. We know she can't handle that adversity. We know she can't handle that difficult conversation because she would look at me funny. Now I'm looking less masculine. Why? Because I share certain things that happened in my life. Because I wanted to get it off and share it with you and have you to have some sympathy and some empathy for you. Now you ain't ready to give that. Let me come in there crying every other day because I'm dealing with a past situation where my mother passed and it still haunts me to this day. And I'm sharing that. I said, hey man, when you gonna get over this? You gonna keep crying every day? But let that be the opportunity to shoot on the other foot. And you come in there. And I said, baby, it happened 3 years ago. Why are you still crying about it? You so insensitive. You are heartless. Why would you say that? I'm going through a traumatic time. It's just not the same. Now, we accept the double standards because that's just the way it is. But would we like it to be different? Yeah, we would. But we know you ladies ain't going to give us no, yeah, y'all ain't going to give us no leeway. We can see how we talking now. Di wants us to baby up the little boy. Like I said, if you want to raise a little dick sucker, you keep doing that shit. That's not what I taught my son. When my son was crying, I said, stop all that crying and use your words. Use your words. What's wrong with you? Talk to me. Don't do all that crying. Talk to me. Tell me what's wrong. And there's a time and place for everything. On that football field, Viz's exactly right. You better drive up fast. We're not going to do all this. Now, when we get in the car, we can do it then. Because now you're in the privacy of just me and my son. We can have the conversation. Are we at home? We're gonna deal with it right then and there. But doing it on a football field, on the basketball court, or whatever sport you're playing, yeah, that might not be looked at as well acceptable. Because not only you're gonna have people gonna give you a hard time, your teammates gonna give you a hard time. They're gonna 2 weeks later after everything's said and done. Remember that time little Hank was crying in the gym because he missed a couple shots. Yeah, he was a little crybaby. Now you don't want to do no boy like that because it's not acceptable in society. Until that day comes where it's acceptable, we can't do it to these boys. We're doing a disservice.
Can I answer too? I think everybody else did. Aisha go? I was gone for a second. Aisha, did you go?
You can go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay. I think this is the difference between how men raise men versus how women attempt to raise men, but women cannot raise men. You cannot make a man. You can grow him up, you can see him to adulthood, but you can't make a man. Men make men just like women make women. And I know probably Di is not going to agree with me, but this is creating more and more violent men. Because you think, oh, we talk about the problem, it solved the issue. It's not the same. He's not a woman. Us women, we thinking that everybody gonna get along after you could just talk about it. That's not how they work. And if we notice, all we have to do is look at statistics. I know a lot of people don't like statistics. Sorry guys, but statistics show that men today are more explosively violent than before, because a lot of them are being raised with women. There are no men in the homes, and they're being taught that their feelings are just as important as everything else. I mean, I understand where women are talking about where they say, oh, men only resort to violence. A lot of times it is because they're taught that they shouldn't be doing all the other stuff. But at the same time, I don't think that men is their nature just to resort to violence. I think men try to find solutions and they get frustrated when they don't have one. And I think that's what's causing the anger, is the frustration. I wouldn't say it's that they're angry at the world or angry at people. They get built up helplessness, that they feel like, I can't finish this, I can't solve this problem, and it's irritating me. I think that's more what it is than anything, but I'm not a man, I can't speak for men. I think that we've seen more today. Oh, do you guys notice something else? If you guys watch police videos, I watch them quite often. Police videos are so telling of the culture and how the people are, because police see people in their worst. And if we look at the people in their worst today, when I watch police videos, I see so many men, when they trying to have an interaction with the police, they speak like women. They don't talk like men talking to another man. And you see them, and the police is trying to talk to them, and they say, what happened? Man, I just feel like, she was saying that, and she, I was trying to say, and it's like, why are you talking like that? Before you didn't see that men speak that way. Men used to say, this is this would happen, she got mad. But now men, they try to speak like women because women are teaching them, speak like us. You can cry in front of everybody. That's all right. And now the men are turning into poussé. I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to be vulgar, but it's like a French poussé. The men are poussé because the men are turning poussé because they've been taught now that they supposed to act like women. So now they act like women with the violence of a man. Now we have two issues that we have to deal with, because we have women and men. The emotions of a woman, the strength of a man. So that's what I was thinking.
The instability emotional side of a woman too, the unstable side. Oh, go ahead, Ash. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I feel like either or is bad. A woman raising a boy by himself is bad, and a man raising his son without a woman is bad. I feel like both. I feel like both are equally important in kids' life, because boys still need that nurturing love from their mothers. A boy growing up, whether he's sick, because that's the life that we all live, and we have. One day, we all gonna get sick and we pass away, or unfortunate things happen. But a boy being raised by his father and being like, oh, suck it up, or this is building character, he still needs that nurturing, environment from his mother. Because when he finds a woman, right, that doesn't give him that space or that comfortability when he is going through stuff, you're going to see what you sustain. A man basically saying, hey, yeah, I'm yearning for my woman to understand me a little bit more. I think that a lot of times we try to make it seem like men are machines. They're human beings. They have emotions. They can cry, they feel. And a lot of times what we'll do is will try to create this image like men don't have feelings, men don't have emotions, men don't yearn for what is the word I'm looking for? Comfort. And that's what a mom provides to her child. If my son, I have 3 sons, 16, 13, and 8. And I have 2 daughters, 18 and 13. 18 and 12. So I see the difference in both, and their fathers is around every day, but I see the importance of having a mom and a dad. And just like I'm a woman and I'm raising my daughters still need their fathers just as much as they need me, because there's certain things that my daughters, when they go into the world, they're going to find men based on how their father treated them. And it's the same way when it comes to my sons, they're going to find women based on how I treated my sons. So when my sons are sick, and when they, like my son, he plays soccer, he broke his wrist or whatever. We didn't baby him or anything like that. His father, he didn't cry anything. But when his wrist was hurting, it was time to change his bandage and things like that. That's why I stepped in. That was my role. Hey, mom, my wrist is hurting. I'm not going to sit here and say, suck it up. That's building character. No, do you want to take something for it? So I feel like there's a balance. So to kind of say women, I don't know, just to kind of, I don't know, I just wanted to say that. I just didn't agree with how it was just coming off as like saying like the dad was more important. I don't feel like that. I think the mom and the father is both equally as important, because one without the other produces an imbalanced child.
I agree with Ash to a certain degree.
I was gonna say I agree to a certain extent.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I think that a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. I just feel that wholeheartedly in my heart. And I think that is the problem with society, and the reason why we have so many broken homes, because women genuinely think that they can do it all by themselves. I think I heard somebody recently was like, oh, LeBron was raised by a single mother. That's like, despite the factors that happened, right? Despite all the obstacles, he was able to be the successful man, right? But that's kind of rare, right? I feel like only a man can teach you those skills, but he might not have his father, but he had to have other male role models around. And I think that's also important, because people lose, husbands pass away, father, things happen, right? So if you had your brother, your uncle, your pastor, I think that it's important for young boys to have male role models, period. And I do agree with all the men on the panel, like that's why everybody's so soft and sweet these days. And it's, let's be emotionally available. I mean, I don't buy into that whole emotional available thing, because I believe in gender roles, right? And I think that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. So I think that when we start crossing these boundaries in the gender roles, that gets confusing for kids. And that's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to confuse my son. I'm not going to confuse my daughter. No, my son can't play with no Barbie. We can get a G.I. Joe truck. Like I don't, you know what I'm saying? I subscribe to normal gender roles. And so I think that my son played football all the way high school, center and left tackle. He better not have to cry on that field. Like I just, we'll deal with this when we get home. What we're crying for. So I think that teaches you how to be strong. And I think it's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a man being strong. And there's nothing wrong with men not crying. Like I personally, I want you to be emotionally available, but I also don't want you to be sitting here crying on my shoulder. Like I want to be crying on your shoulder. You know what I mean? So I believe a man should be a man and a woman should be a woman. And I believe that we are not physiologically and emotionally made to be the same person. We react differently to every situation based on our emotions. That's why a man has testosterone levels and a woman has estrogen. We are not the same. And I do not subscribe to like crossing over the gender roles. Like,
so just to confirm, you saying that we not equal, right?
We're not equal.
No, we're not equal.
For sure. I'm just wanna hear all the women
No,
say it. That's
absolutely
all.
not.
'Cause
I
'cause
just wanted to say
we done heard y'all say it a few times, but just want to hear you say it. That's all.
I just wanted to say this one thing. I had seen this on Facebook, and I feel like this really applies. It was this lady talking about like raising boys, right, with her husband, and she stated that the first 6 years of a child's life is the most important for a mother to be there, because that's when you're nurturing them. That's when you're there to just be a nurturer, right? They need you the most. But from 6 to like 14, let's say 16, they need their father. That needs to be the main parental person in their lives for young boys, because that's when they're starting to go through their change. That's when they're starting to smell themselves a little bit. They're trying to figure out what it is to be a man. And then unfortunately, from 14, 16 and up, they are influenced by their peers. So I agree with Ash to a certain degree in saying that you need both, right? You do need both. We both play roles in the relationship. And it's not that one is more important than the other. It's just that there are certain times in life where one becomes more of a necessity on a day-to-day basis, and learning life skills and what you will become than the other. Because like Amira said, we can't teach them how to be a man. We've never walked in a man's shoes. We don't know what that looks like. We can only give our opinion of what we would want a man to be, but we can't teach them how to be a man. Just like a man cannot teach a woman how to be a woman. He can only give her his opinions on what he would want a woman to look like. So I do think that there becomes a shift. You need both, but there becomes a shift in time where one becomes a little bit more important than the other. Just like a woman is going to become more important for a young girl growing up, especially once she starts with her period and having her emotional change and going through that change of liking boys and dealing with heartbreak. Yes, she still needs her father there as an example, but the mother will become more important. I just think that's important for us to know.
No, I agree. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
I might have a little bit of a unique perspective here. I know this isn't common, but I was raised by a single father from the time I was younger than 2. So and he never had like a girlfriend or a wife. I really didn't have a very strong female figure in my life growing up. And what I noticed is that I think it was a generational thing more than it was a gender thing, but my father was very uncomfortable with most emotions. And so it was a situation where oftentimes, like, if I was having big feelings, right, like, go to your room, deal with it, come back, you know? And so I feel like when you're talking about having role models for the way to behave in different genders in this society, right? Like, yeah, that's important. But I think the number one thing that we can teach all of our kids, and that's not just girls, it's not just boys, the number one thing that we can teach all of our kids is that having any emotion is okay, but
Ari.
behaving in any way is not okay, right? So the thing that
I want to answer to you. Have you noticed that single fathers, the children that come out of single father households, tend to be a lot more stable mentally than the children that come out of single mother households? Have you noticed that?
I don't know that I know enough people like myself who came out of single father households to say whether that's true. I know for me, it probably took me till damn near 30 to even know what feelings I was having on a daily basis, to be honest, because it was literally like, okay, go to your room, get yourself in order, come back when you're not feeling anything anymore, right? And so, yeah, maybe externally I was more stable looking, but I wouldn't say that I was more stable internally. I think the number one thing, and now I have a master's in clinical psych. I'm a PhD candidate. I work with behavior analysis every day. And from that perspective, like, the number one thing I would recommend everybody teach any child of any gender is that having those feelings and understanding those feelings and recognizing what those feelings are is super important, as is behaving in a way that doesn't make it everybody else's problem. right? So like, yeah, little boys can feel sad, and also they're not going to let their team down. You're not going to make it everybody else's problem. And that should be true for women as well, right? Like you can be a little bit off put that your husband is crying on your shoulder, but you're not going to make it his problem. And that's what the start of this conversation was, is it important to create emotional safety for men? And so me, regardless of how it makes me feel, if my man is being vulnerable with me in whatever way that he needs to be vulnerable with me, then I'm not going to make my, you know, ill ease or whatever. Like if it's a surprise to me just because I don't see it that much, I'm not going to make that his problem and make him feel unsafe and make him feel like he doesn't have the space to feel how he feels, particularly when he's not lashing out in a way that's destructive, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I also agree with I can't even see your names, my bad. What's that? Ty? Yeah, Ty. I definitely agree with you on that, Ty. That's something that as you know, co-parenting, me and my ex-husband have decided to do, which is when my sons turn 13, they go live with their dad. Because they need to be around him more. And at first I was like, I don't know. But you know, I was just like, all right, you know, I get it. I still see them every day. They still have their rooms here and stuff like that, you know. So I think that a lot of people should start doing that. But like I said, I don't feel like we have these conversations enough in our community to even have this type of idea, because it's just kind of like, oh no, I think the child just is to still be with the mom, but that can do a lot of harm to little boys. You know,
Well,
especially him just being around his mom 24/7 and learning from her. Uh, I think that's why we have a generation of sassy men, right? Because they were raised by their moms, and the way that they have learned how to handle situations is on an emotional and not a logical stance. Like they'll, you know, be more emotional with trying to make their decisions. Like, you know, instead of, you know, normally for me, when I see a man like my dad or my kids' fathers making this decision or whatever, it's like this, like, all right, this is the problem. This is what we're going to do. Boom, boom, boom. But when I'm making a you know, a solution, I'm like, I don't know, but I think this, you know, and that's you know, that's not really logical. That's just more emotional based when you're trying to just, you know, kind of have a whole bunch of different plans and stuff. Also to Aisha, I feel like men can cry for a reason. I feel like if men weren't supposed to cry, then God wouldn't allow them to be able to cry. I do want to say that men go through things, right? There are things in their life like losing people. When I was married, my ex-husband lost 2 of his kids, right? And he was walking around like trying to seem like everything was okay. And I had to tell him, like, I know you're not okay. It's all right to cry, you know? And he sat down, he broke down to me. So I think when men hear us saying like, oh no, I want to see you crying. And what if they are going through something that hurts them to the point where, damn, that shit hurt. I want to cry. I need to get this out. When you're crying, that's an emotion. Like your emotions is coming out of you. And it's not healthy to keep that in. And that's why it turns to anger, because they're not allowed to get those emotions out, whether it's them speaking or whether that's them crying. When you cry, that is also a way for you to get your emotions out, get your feelings out. So I think that we have to be careful with telling men like, no, I don't want to see you cry. It's okay to cry, baby. Let's, you know what I'm saying? Cry on my shoulder, baby. Like, let me, you know, rub you, take care of you. And then I'll, you know, just listen. Just me being just there to listen to you and express yourself. But I think that that's also a part of just them, you creating a space for them just to be emotional. If they need to be emotional, I'm not saying be emotional every day, but if they need to cry, let them cry.
Let's let Chris talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very big thing to say. But another portion of that is we have a generation of young men who are coming up and they are dating. Let's be honest about it. Like they're dating your daughters, they're dating your kids and stuff like that. So it's not just a matter of how you're raising your kids, it's also a matter of how you're raising the girls in these particular situations. If it's going to be a situation where we're all telling our kids and our sons and our boys that, hey, it's okay to cry, it's okay to have these emotions and stuff like that. But we're simultaneously telling our daughters that, hey, you don't want a man who does X, Y, and Z. That's counterintuitive. You have a son that you're telling, hey, you can be vulnerable, and you're having a daughter that you're telling, hey, you don't want a vulnerable man. And here's the thing, once they get to high school, those two will meet each other. And I don't care what it is that you're saying as a parent, as a father, as a mom. As a man, I'm gonna just be honest about it. Pussy talks. It does. Okay. If I realize that I get more action from women, I get more attention from women, women are paying attention to me. If I do not talk about my feelings, I don't do X, Y, and Z, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm not gonna talk about my feelings. I will stay on that football field. I will not cry. I don't care how broken my arm is. I don't care where my collarbone is. My femur could be halfway to Timbuktu. If Ashley's going to give me her number because I didn't cry after this game, guess what? I will not say a damn thing. So it's not just a matter of going ahead and telling our kid, well, our boys that, hey, you can't be this vulnerable and cry. It's also, hey, we also have to tell our girls, like, you need to be receptive of this. This is what a real man is. We have to really differentiate, hey, this is what a man is supposed to be. And as a woman, you need to be receptive of these things.
Well, that comes down to the
go ahead,
word that
Brett.
they know. Yeah, go ahead, Brett. Go ahead.
Your internet working now? You good? All right. All right.
I agree with a couple of things I've heard. I think men should be able to express how they're feeling, but I do believe it's a time and a place for it. I want to create a safe space for them to express themselves. I don't think it's healthy to tell a man or a boy, you know, stop crying, you're not supposed to feel that way. But I think it's important to teach them when to do that. It's just like when you become an adult and you're in a meeting at work or whatever the case may be, and you don't agree with something that happened or you don't like the way someone made you feel. You can't just break down and start crying and lashing out in the meeting or whatever the setting is. You acknowledge how it made you feel, internalize it until you're in a space where you can deal with it. I mean, you can also learn how to address people when they cross your boundaries. And I think that's important as well for us to teach our children about boundaries and respect and all of those things. But in terms of emotions, yeah, you got to teach them how to control or manage their emotions so that they're not just, losing it at the worst times. So
I would like to just plug a book called Boys Will Be Human by Justin Baldoni. It addresses a lot of these things from a psychological perspective, and it's written for young men by a man about kind of embracing their feelings and their self-esteem while also behaving in a way that's appropriate and is going to be effective for them socially.
Yeah, I think that all the men on the panel can agree that it's a time and a place for everything. Just going back to sports, right? If once boys are exposed to sports, there's a time and a place to be emotional, right? I've been in plenty of football games. I wrestled. I've coached. There's been plenty of time where you can be so caught up in the emotions of being on the field, of being on the mat, being on the court. This is not the time to show those emotions per se the same way that you would show them off the field. Once the game is said and done, then I can cry out of frustration or out of joy. You know what I'm saying? Men typically teach young boys that fact. That's why men feel more comfortable talking to other men about the issues that they go through. Because if they share with their woman or a woman, there's that potential that this emotionally mature woman is going to throw that in his face at some point. She's going to discredit and dismiss everything that he's saying. So I very much believe that, and yeah, there is a struggle with the maturity for men in that case. But I believe that men typically are fully aware of their emotions and how to balance it. But going to the topic of the conversation is that men communicate differently, and in most cases, women don't create that safe space for them to truly be able to explore being vulnerable as a grown man. So they keep that, they retain it, and they only share it with the men that they're close to. And even
Yeah, I was
that
gonna
looks
say,
different depending on what that group is.
yeah, I was gonna say, as men, if any of y'all ladies ever took your sons to the barbershop, and you would see how things was communicated, but when a lady walks in, or sometimes even when a child walks in, how the conversation would totally change. It might go silent. They might not say a word. You know what I'm saying? And because it depending on, the type of, if she's been there a lot of times, maybe she frequent and she knows how some of the men talk, but the men would just totally change the whole conversation. Midstream, we talking about, man, you see that girl with that big old ass? Woman walk in, man, you see a game last night? Man, LeBron did his goddamn thing. We was just talking about some big old asses and big titties and the way she was looking, walking down the street just a second ago. But now, that woman walked in, that child walked in, we flipped the script because we already know what it is. And we were respectful to these young boys because we know, they don't need to be hearing this because, they don't tell them what type of language they know. Now, I know y'all sitting there say, we can't cuss these little boys. Let me tell you this. As a substitute teacher for years, some of these kids, that's the only way they're going to move. You got to cuss them out. If you don't cuss them out, they see you being weak on them, yeah, they're going to take advantage of you. And they're not going to hear a word you say. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. Sometimes you have to be a little rough with some of these little boys. That's just the way it is. I know, ladies, y'all don't want to accept it. Oh, you can't talk to my son like that. Fuck your son. Your son bad. Lil Junior don't want to act right. He acting a goddamn fool. So the only way I get Junior to pay attention is when I get in his face and I cuss him out. Then Junior all of a sudden he got that act right in him. But why do I have to do that? I don't know. It's just the way some of these kids are made, and they are. Look, like I said it before, there's a time and place for everything. If that little boy's crying on the field, yeah, that's not the place. Now,
What is
me
average?
as a coach, when I was doing it, I put him say, hey man, whatever is going through, we can talk about it after practice. Right now, I need for you to do what you need to do. Whatever it is I need for you to do, you need to get back on the field. If you're hurt, you're going over and see the trainer, get it together, and then when you're ready, you come on back. Sitting here all this boo-hoo and who, okay, it's obvious you ain't ready to play, go on over with your mama. Go on over with your mama, because this ain't for you. You might need to hang your cleats up, time to retire from the game of football. It's not your sport.
Go ahead, Mary.
You said this. I've heard this term before. Get ag right, and you. What is ag right? No, I mean, is it like a term? Does it mean something like? What is ag right?
Like straighten up.
Yeah,
Act right.
like get your act together. That's the way they're going to start.
Act right.
Act right.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
ACT.
I thought it was ag right.
Hey, so
no.
It's okay. It's a little slang up here.
So even just going back to the football example. So when the coach had told the little boy, I'm gonna send you over there with the cheerleaders, right? Women took this as a jab to all women. Oh, what is he saying? All of this, right? Maybe this little boy is actually a really good cheerleader, and we don't know it. There are male cheerleaders. These motherfuckers get full rides to college. Maybe this is the route that this little boy should be going. But instead, because women are all caught up in their emotions, they're not thinking. It's why are you? Maybe this little soft ass boy needs to go over here and go be a cheerleader and be tossing chicks in the air. That's a thing. I don't understand how is that a diss? So the fact that the fact that part was even overlooked and women immediately got defensive to it says a lot about the emotional maturity that a lot of these women say that they have. Because
do you really think that coach was up there like he might be he might be a good cheer? Like that doesn't sound like the
I'm just
intent
saying,
of the comment.
if you can't, the harsh reality of it is, if you can't get on this field and act like a football player, then this sport is not for you. There's a sport right there that you can go and do. You can go be a cheerleader, go pick up some pom-poms and clap.
I think you have a point. I feel like the statement doesn't matter all that much. Like really, like the way that it was said to the little boy doesn't matter all that much. But what matters, right, in my mind, is when we are teaching a child not to feel something. So if we're telling a kid that they can feel however they need to feel, and also you're still going to need to be able to do this, right? And that's true for everybody. I mean, I feel like gender wars honestly are a little bit overstated and a lot. And I know because like it's kind of fun to argue that way, but it's a little bit overstated. Any human being should be able to feel any way that they're feeling, but we also have to handle shit. Like that's just when we grow up, we're trying to teach our kids to be good adults. We're not trying to teach them to be good kids. And any adult has to be able to have those feelings and still do what they need to do in their life. And so the way that the coach said it, okay, maybe a little bit harsh, doesn't matter to me that much, honestly. But the lesson there, I think, was valid for sure.
Yeah, well, we got to start to bring this to a close. But before we do, I agree with what you said, Ari. I think how I tell my son and I've told my oldest is that I'm okay with you feeling. It's just you got to regulate it before it comes out on that external. And so I think we got to appreciate like strong men. I believe the world needs balance. So even though you may come across a coach or a man that may be a little bit more stern, just balance it out, because all those energies, all that extra rah-rah they need, that they men. And I want our young men to embrace manhood. Like I love being a man. I love being a man. I just can't even fathom how men can like men. I just don't get it. Like there's so much like fulfillment with just being a man. And my shout out to my grandfather for teaching me that, man. I embrace everything that come with it. I love problem solving. I love being able to take the weight of everything in the house. I love for everything to fall on me so that I can figure it out. Like there's nothing like a woman being able to turn to you and to ask you for guidance and ask you your opinion. To ask you like, what should I do when it comes to this situation? Or if something happens and then you just know what to do. You know, like one of the things that I would tell any man, and I teach my boys, if you ever have a water issue, find out where the water supply is and turn the water off. That's how you prevent any further damage. Is to cut the water supply off. Like you'd be surprised how when you deal with a furnace, just changing the filter can just make a difference. If you got a car, the changing the oil, that's the life of the car. Every 3,000 miles. If the sticker gone, call the place that you last got your oil changed and figure out what the mileage was when you went there. It's just like this. It's like the simple thing. Like these things are fascinating to me, and so we got to get men to embrace being a man. And the only way you're gonna be able to do it is by having a a manly man in a life. And I 100% agree with Amir. You can't teach. I don't think women can teach a man how to be a man. Same thing, like, because my daughter, I adore my children's mother. Like I'm a, she's a good example, a good role model for my daughter. And I say that's why I want you to lean on her in order to be that woman. But I'm gonna come in with the extra because she's not a man. So whatever she can't teach you, I'm gonna be able to fill in the gap. And I'm gonna be able to give you like the manly side. So I do have conversations with her, but you need both of them. And so I just don't understand when people think that they don't need a man or they can do it all. Like, get that man some type of role model, some type of male figure in his life, because if not, he is gonna be soft. He's not gonna know how to navigate a house. She's not gonna turn to him when she's looking for that protection, or when she has these problems. She's not gonna be able to turn to him because he's not gonna know what to do. He doesn't have a necessary skill set because he wasn't around men when he was growing up. And I just don't understand how a woman can't recognize that their son is becoming a sissy. I just don't get it. But nevertheless, man, go ahead and close this out.
They can barely tell if they dating one.
Bruiser, $2 smoke detectors tripping her internet signal. Big Ann 11, $10 says, Ash, how you muted, but your smoke detector is speaking with no issues. It's Travolta. It's the 125. I don't know what country you in, but thank you. What's up with the black women and smoke detector batteries? Can't they hear the beeping? They don't need no man, but they can't change the smoke detector battery. Shaking my head. Yeah.
God damn.
Y'all ain't have to go in on Ash like that.
All right. I want to say this. First of all, my landlord changed all the smoke detector batteries. Now all of them going off. So I don't know what's going on. How about that?
I guess he probably didn't have no man in the house.
Use batteries that
Was
was
your
27
landlord a
years
woman?
old.
Was your landlord a woman?
Oh.
No.
Hey, dog, you might have to push the test button. Go get a ladder, get a chair or something. Get a broom and push the test button on it.
Well, last time that happened to me, I didn't put the cover back on right. So I just had to take it back down and put the cover back on right, and it was good.
Yeah, I got like 1, 2, 3. I got like 4 smoke detectors in here. So it's like,
I mean, did he
they
put the
all going
batteries
off.
in?
I don't know.
He put
Did
the
he
same
just think he
batteries
was
in
like?
He opened it up and put the same battery in.
He flipped them like he was doing the remote. You just flip them.
BZ says, try me the location. I got you.
God. Hey, I'm telling you what he did. He put that bad boy in the freezer for a couple hours, then put him back in the smoke detector. That's
Joy that like
broke
out
people shit.
subscribe to the
Y'all
channel.
know.
Thank y'all for tuning in.